holiday season from the entire WURD family. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Progressive and proud. Independent. Black media.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
All right, everyone, welcome to Reality Check. It is Monday. It's the Monday edition of Reality Check here on WURD, the top of the week edition of Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media. It's none other than WURD at the top of the holiday week, at the top of the Christmas week. Hope everyone is getting ready for the holiday, Christmas season, the Kwanzaa season, and into a new and hopefully, prayerfully, refreshed new year. I know I am. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Let me open up the phone lines while we're at it. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the phone lines and see what are on people's minds as we head into the holiday week. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. It is 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines, just open up the phone lines, doing a little bit of housekeeping, opening up phone lines at the top of this Reality Check week. I'm Charles Ellis, and I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, and WURD app. Once again, the open phone lines are at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. You can also watch us on youtube.com/onWURD. I'm going to start making a little bit more use of our WURD TV, because I know people from time to time will leave comments there at youtube.com/onWURD, which is a bit more easily accessible than the Facebook live stream, because, you know, really get into the Facebook live stream, you got to be like, you have to have a Facebook account. I don't have that. But there are people, I am able to see you in Facebook Live. I'm able to at least see your comments at Facebook Live at facebook.com/forward, facebook.com/forward once again. So feel free to leave your comments there. We have a few of them. Just some good morning salutations, or top of the morning salutations from Malcolm White, who was watching and listening from Westmount area. Good morning to you. And also good morning to Nasir Butler. Good morning, peace and blessings back at you. Appreciate everyone's time here this morning watching us and listening to us on WURD. 215-634-8065, toll free 866 361-0900 here today on Reality Check. Homicides in the city of Philadelphia now are at 477 homicides thus far in the year 2020 in Philadelphia. That's in Philadelphia alone. Philadelphia is not even the largest city in the United States. Actually, the largest cities bigger than Philly, have lower homicide rates. So Philly right now at this stage has the highest homicide rate for the year of all major cities or all big cities. So that and it is still 39% homicide, still 39% above where they were this same time last year. When we look at this same time last year, there were 343 homicides at this same time in 2019. Just 300, well, I don't want to say just, never say just, because one homicide is way too many. So let me just recalibrate on that. Because it was horrific last year, and we were reaching a record pace last year in terms of homicides. And so let's just be a little bit more deliberate and careful about that, because we don't want to diminish, because that's the problem with Philadelphia. That's the problem. That's why we're at 477 homicides, why the city has no plan, why the city has no joint task force. The mayor seems fairly non-committal and fairly, I don't know, absent as far as, his response, or leading a concerted response or a loud, vocal, urgent response on homicides. And part of the problem is that we've normalized it. We have indeed normalized it. We're thinking that people, we may not want to admit it, and maybe we're doing it subconsciously, but we've normalized homicides as just a basic part of Philly life, a basic part of the fabric of Philadelphia society, when that shouldn't be the case. So it was already high last year, 477 homicides in the city of Philadelphia, and still no plan in sight. That's kind of where we are right now, and that's very tragic and that's very sad. And so we just have to put ourselves in, daily reminding the city, daily reminding residents, daily reminding ourselves, daily reminding city leaders that so far it does not appear, we know so far based on what we're seeing, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything about it. So we're just kind of going along with the motions. Shooting incidents so far this year are 67. Yep, 67%. That's the number of shooting incidents in Philly. So it's not just you when you're hearing gunshots throughout the city, or you're in a particular section of the city and you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm just sort of dealing with this, or just my particular neighborhood is dealing with this and no one else is. No, throughout the city, shooting incidents have gone up, have spiked 67% from where they were this same time last year. So that's 3,730 shooting incidents that have been counted that we know of in 2020 in the city of Philadelphia. The number of shooting victims is 53%, more than 53% above where they were this same time last year. There have been 2,135 shooting incidents, shooting victims. These are non-fatal shooting victims in the city of Philadelphia so far in 2020. Aggravated assaults by gun have gone up by, and I guess there's a broad definition for that. That can mean any number of things, but we do know at its very sort of basic definition, that means that you have been assaulted with, you've been maybe, pistol whipped or attacked, or you've been held up by a gun. Those have spiked up by more than 49% since this same time last year. So far there have been 3,635 aggravated assaults by gun in the city of Philadelphia, compared to 2,436 this same time last year. So that's where the state of violence is in the city of Philadelphia right now. Let me go to Stanley out in North Philly. Mr. Stanley's calling us at the top of this Monday morning here on Reality Check. Mr. Stanley, how are you doing, sir?
Morning, Charles. And I'd like to thank you, Charles, because you continue to bring to the public attention what is taking place with the gun violence, the murder. And to me, besides Kenyatta Johnson and a couple of other city officials, they're very mum on that, what's taking place with the murders and shootings in the city of Philadelphia. and you bring up statistics about how we are the murder capital, for lack of better terminology, right now, in the poorest, biggest city in America. Mm-hmm. And I'm very disturbed of what took place in City Council a week or so ago, when they will continue to take money and get it to brick and mortars, which give it to the unions and these other entities, that doesn't filter out to the community of people who need it. Sultan Ahmed has been working on a $600 million social impact bond, and I believe most of the council people knew what he was trying to do to bring some resources to the people who need it. They decided to continue to do the same thing they did with the convention centers, the NTI, the rebuild, and nothing is given to the people who need the help. And it was a great opportunity with the $600 million social impact bond to address some of those situations that is causing the despair in people that caused them to be able to be agitated with each other. And for city council to just ride past that and continue to give money to, for lack of better terms, to those who have been receiving the money, the unions, the trade, the suppliers, and none of that money is going to be filtered down to the people in Philadelphia who it could help. And I really thank you, Charles, because you keep bringing this up, and very few other people bring it up. And we need to make that one of our main objectivities in 2021, to bring resources to the people and stop giving us this brick and mortar stuff. Because like I heard someone say, if you give the people opportunities, you don't have to do low-income housing. They could have enough money to buy the houses market rate. But we keep giving them material things and leaving that aspect of what they need to help themselves out of their hands. Thank you, Charles.
No, thank you, Mr. Stanley. And you know what? Because relief or the whatever package that elected officials in the city are putting together as far as economic relief, it's a racket. You know, it's all about making sure that certain interests are looked out for and certain interests are paid. And so we did have Brother Sultan on last Thursday, I believe, talking about that social impact bond, and we're going to talk more about it. I'm going to write about it. I've already, I'm in the process of putting something together, refreshing and reviving my reality check column in the Philadelphia Citizen. So just that's going to start back at the top of the new year at the PhiladelphiaCitizen.org, and we're going to write about it. We're going to explore social impact bonds. We know that social impact bonds, or the concept or the notion of it, they've been tried, they've been experimented elsewhere. Our larger cousin, further up 95 North, keep going up the New Jersey Turnpike, New York, and we want to constantly compare ourselves to New York in terms of sports teams. I don't care about that. I want to compare us to how poorly we're doing in terms of coming up with new ideas and in terms of providing substantial economic relief or coming up with new ideas to truly tackle things like poverty or illiteracy. Poor academic performance, the dearth, the paucity, the lack or absence of black businesses. You have a town that's 43% black, but barely 3 or 4% of the businesses in the city are black owned. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, every time the city wants to call for or wants voters to approve borrowing money, we're getting a municipal bond. It's for brick and mortar stuff. It's for buildings. It's going into things that just don't bring any sort of direct investment. You know, and so I guess the whole argument there is, well, you know, that money will recirculate back into the economy. No, it's a racket. It's about, you know, making sure certain interests in certain types of businesses, businesses and interests and industries that, in large part, do not hire black people in the city of Philadelphia like they should, making sure those interests and those sectors and those industries are the ones getting the money. And so, but, you know, everything is you know, sort of couched or clothed in a very elaborate way to make it seem like the people who need it the most in the city are really benefiting. And that's just not the case. We need something that's much more creative, and we need something that's ambitious, and something where the investments, where the money, where those types of resources and funds go directly into the pockets, into the bank accounts and into helping residents, really struggling residents in Philadelphia, start to build wealth. We have to figure out a way, that's what the agenda has to be heading into 2021, has to be health, wealth, education, and making direct investments in those areas in a really targeted and very ambitious way. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Speaking of rackets, real quick, and to Mr. Stanley's point, it's all about mindset and changing the mindset. When you look at the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer today, for example, the Philadelphia Inquirer is the leading newspaper. It is the flagship publication for the city of Philadelphia, just like the New York Times is for New York, or the LA Times is for LA, or the Washington Post is for Washington, D.C., Atlanta Journal-Constitution for Atlanta. So it's the Philadelphia Inquirer. Philadelphia Inquirer is the mainstream paper of record for the city of Philadelphia. If you're near reaching 500 homicides in this city, in a city of 1.6 million, and especially you're reaching homicides or reaching 500 homicides, or the number of homicides in your city is outpacing the number of homicides in New York City, which is a far larger city of nearly 9 million people. They don't have nearly 500 homicides. But if you're dealing with this crisis, that should be something that should be front page material on the Philadelphia Inquirer every day. That's just not the case. This is not the case. I mean, we're talking, we'll mention that in a moment. It talks about the $900 billion relief deal that Congress just chiseled out yesterday. So we found out about that. We'll talk about that in a moment. There's the usual news about the Eagles, and then it gets into all the challenges and the troubles of middle-class white people in Philadelphia and suburban Philly. I mean, there should be like a large section that's cut out of the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer every day, embarrassing people in City Hall, calling them out about how they have not adequately addressed or responded to this violence epidemic in the city of Philadelphia. That should be like a constant thing. But see, that's not the mindset. That's not the Philadelphia mindset. Everyone's been pretty much shrugging. That has to stop. So we have to kind of go into the new year. We know we're about to reach 500 homicides, more than likely at this current pace. And so we have to go into the new year with a brand new attitude and a sense of urgency around this. But when the paper of record for the city is not placing any urgency on it, then the elected officials feel like, okay, well, people like from the mayor to most of the city council, literally the majority of the city council, they feel like, okay, well, we've dodged that one. We don't have to talk about this. So, the folks who are in the fourth estate and media, since they don't seem to care, we don't care. So we're just going to continue to highlight it here every day. And fine, okay, city leaders are going to cringe a bit. They feel like they don't want us to bring it up. That's their problem. But we're going to have to bring it up because lives have been lost and lives are continually at risk, especially when you look at the number of people who've been non-fatally shot. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. You did hear Congress did get together finally, the Senate, chiseling together a $900 billion kick the can down the road 2020, end of 2020 stimulus deal. So the bill that, as we know of, and the president hasn't signed yet, the bill will extend aid to more unemployment aid to folks who are struggling. And so there's going to be a combination of stimulus checks, about $600 stimulus checks per, went from $1,200 now down to $600. Each individual or a certain income bracket of individual supposed to be receiving $600 stimulus checks. Also, unemployment benefits, federal unemployment benefits will be extended for another 11 weeks heading into 2021. Those unemployment benefits will go from $600 a week to now $300 a week. Also, $430 billion of that $900 billion is not really new funds. It's really repurposed, unused CARES Act funding. And these are unused emergency lending program funding that's run by the Federal Reserve, otherwise or popularly or infamously known as that Paycheck Protection Program, that very poorly administered Paycheck Protection Program. There is no aid for city and state governments. So no new aid for city and state governments. In fact, a lot of cities and states have not used all of their previous CARES Act money. So the federal government will extend the time, or will extend the deadline by which cities and states can spend their CARES Act money. Speaking of which, and it's, you do wonder, first of all, which cities and states, you're probably asking that question, which cities and states out there are not using or have not used yet with all the pain and hurt and economic misery that's out there, knowing people are going through the grinder right now. How could cities and states, what cities and states in their right minds have not administered this money yet? Well, Pennsylvania is one of them. Pennsylvania is among one of them, and this has started to come out last week. Actually, Spotlight PA, which is a public media consortium, of outlets like WHYY, WITF, whom I occasionally moderate tour racial justice panels for, and other newspapers got together, and they found out that Pennsylvania had missed the original deadline to spend $108 million in rent and mortgage relief. There was $175 million that the feds gave Pennsylvania in CARES Act funding for rent and mortgage relief. Okay, let me repeat that. Yes, $175 million that the federal government had already given Pennsylvania through the CARES Act for rent and mortgage relief. And I know there are people listening in who are struggling with their rent, hadn't gotten their rent paid yet, probably were trying to get that emergency rent relief from the state of Pennsylvania, from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, hadn't received it yet. Well, apparently, Pennsylvania has not spent $108 million of that $175 million. And the reason is because they made it too hard to get the money. You just, you have cities and states out there, so it's hard to feel sorry for cities and states like the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania when, once again, there's that lack of urgency and there's that lack of vision. And it just really just this basic, everyone's talking like they understand that we're in a pandemic and they really truly care, and they don't. Because if you cared, you would have made sure all that money was spent, and then lobbying the federal government and showing them the high need for rent relief and mortgage relief in a state that's been hit as hard and in cities that have been hit as hard as Philadelphia. So people need to stop fronting out here. Like, this is just a lot of fronting. You remember that old word, fronting? People just front. People are like faking that they really do care about the situation. And it to me, it's becoming like sickening. It is becoming nauseating. Just watching this shuffle and this tap dance that elected officials perform, city, state, and federal, at the expense of people who are really going through some really difficult and hard times. It should not be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. Not at all. This country has more than enough resources to adequately respond to this crisis and to get this thing done. And then when you do have the resources, people working down to the bureaucrats. It's not just elected officials, but it's people working in these different agencies who are responsible, who are supposed to be official civil servants and stewards of emergency relief money. And they're just not doing their jobs. Maybe the people who don't have jobs right now need to take the jobs of the bureaucrats, the people inside these agencies who are just doing a piss poor job right now of making sure that this relief gets to the people who need it the most. Let me go ahead and take a quick break, swallow, try to avoid throwing up, because that's just criminal negligence on the part of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and other states as well. Let me take a quick break here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
A holiday message to help us all and answer an important question.
We will never know how many of our friends and family members didn't get COVID-19 because we followed safeguards. We'll never know that number. This is Dan Hilferty, CEO of Independence Blue Cross, with a simple reminder of how much good we do for others when we protect ourselves. We'll never know how many lives we save because we wear masks, wash our hands frequently, and keep social distance. We'll never know exactly who we help, who we save when we take protective steps each day. We'll only know one thing for certain, that we did all we could to save people from the effects of a pandemic with the potential to overwhelm the region. And that's a nice thing for us to live with. Thank you all. For more on what you can do, visit ibx.com. Together, we are beating COVID-19.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD Work. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDRadio.com, WURD TV. WURD app. We are heading into our roundtable section. It's not much of a roundtable section. Actually, we're going to have one person. Well, no, we do have a roundtable section. It's going to be G.S. Potter, Dr. G.S. Potter. We're going to bring her on, and we're going to open up the phone line so everyone else, listeners included, can join in on the conversation on our roundtable session, which we have here every Monday since GS is the only roundtablist present today. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. I see we have a lot of comments on Facebook Live. I appreciate that. We'll get to some of those comments as well during this session with Dr. G.S. Potter, who's a regular contributor here on WURD's Reality Check and also contributing editor for the B Note, our companion magazine for Reality Check, WURD, THEBE-Note.com. Dr. G.S. Potter joins us now by phone. Doctor, how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. How are you doing, Charles?
Okay, I'm like you, hanging in there. So I'm not sure how I'm doing. Everything that's happening and that's going on. You probably heard a little bit of me just getting a little bit wired up about one, the stimulus deal. I want to get your initial thoughts on the stimulus deal. $900 billion. So we went from $3.4 trillion, which even at that point wasn't enough. Because I had talked to economists directly who were saying, hey, if you really want to get through this pandemic unscathed, you shut things down, you mask up a bit. You mask up, well, first you do total mask up. You try to shut things down as much as you can, but you should at least be investing $10 to $15 trillion in economic relief to get through, to ride out this pandemic. Congressional Democrats put together $3.4 trillion. Now we're down to $900 billion. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to approach that. I guess I'll start personally. As a low-income single mother, I am furious. There's no place in America where $600 is going to take care of rent anywhere, let alone the back rent, let alone the back bills, let alone the scripts and scrabbles we've been taking from our friends and our neighbors and our family, if we can find them, because they are scrambling too. It is not enough. And it's not just not enough that we can't pay our bills, but there's consequences because we can't pay our our bills. We're going homeless. We're losing our houses. If we don't have a night of food in our refrigerator and hot water because we couldn't pay our water bills, then they can take our children away. So let's talk about child separation policies. Let's talk about how we got folks right now that are flying on airplanes. The privileged classes are buying airplane tickets to fly around to spread a disease that's killing black and brown people. Meanwhile, we don't got money for plane tickets. We don't got money for rent. We don't got money for food. We don't got some fat white man coming down our chimneys to bring our kids presents. Supposedly our kids are on a naughty list. Like, I'm not having any of this personally. Professionally, also not having it. As a strategist and an organizer, I am disgusted right now with our leadership community. Disgusted. They can literally kill us by the tens of thousands, by the hundreds of thousands, take all our money, take all our homes, take our kids, take our education, take a year of our lives, put us in jail. They can do whatever they want to us, and we're not doing a thing. So the Democrats, yeah, they're not doing their jobs. Absolutely. They're not pushing back. They're not using the leverage they have right now to actually make more come into our pockets or even get money to the cities and states that they're running. But one of the reasons they're not doing that is because our leadership is not in the streets. Our leadership has not organized. Like the ACLU, this is a huge, huge failure on the parts of the unions, on the parts of everyone that's just saying, yeah, y'all go back to work, see if you die. We'll see if we can get you a mask in 3 or 4 months. Like, it is a failure on their part. They should be shutting it down. We should be shutting it down. But we're not doing that because we don't have leadership. We don't have people helping our communities right now. So, yeah, are the Democrats failing? Is this a failure? Absolutely, but it's a failure down the chain. It's a failure in our leadership as community leaders. It's a failure on Democratic Party leaders, and it's a failure of us as people to care enough to try and get each other through this. Because I see folks out there still not wearing their masks. I see folks out there not washing their hands. I see folks saying, oh, well, I got to go to the gym or I got to do this. I'm going to work anyway, so what's it matter? What's it matter? You're going to kill your neighbor. You're going to kill your family members. That's what it matters. So, yeah, I'm sick and I'm hot as well. Pardon me if I'm getting a little heated here, but I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm. No, you should. You should. Let me ask you. So the counter to what you're saying, just for a bit of the sake of argument here, and well, not so much for the sake of argument, for the sake of exploration to understand, what the rationale is here. Some Democrats may say, hey, listen, we just need to do whatever we can right now in the midst of this very dangerous and very unpredictable lame duck president. We need to get whatever we can get out of the last days of this Trump presidency, what we can get. And maybe, some Republicans are thinking the same thing too. Let's just get on the other side of this. Let's just get to January 20th. Let's get to President-elect Biden's inauguration, and afterwards we'll make the necessary investments. We'll come up with much more robust and muscular stimulus or the type of economic relief that's needed. That's some of, and I'm presenting that because that's some of the rationale that I hear from different folks, from staffers and whatnot, or folks who were familiar with the negotiations that are happening on Capitol Hill. That's what some people are saying. They're just saying, hey, listen, this is what we can get. And so we got to get something. We got to do something. Why expect more out of us?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons to hit that. The first, and maybe one of the most important structural reasons, is the Georgia election. That narrative needs to be taken control of. And if you don't think there's a bunch of poor people of color that need more money right now and more assistance right now in Georgia, then you are not paying attention. So if Mitch McConnell wins the Senate, what happens next? What's this huge leverage that's supposedly supposed to come after Inauguration Day? So I think they should be weaving this into the election that's going on in Georgia so that we can take back the Senate to make that happen. And that discussion really it has to be fueled by poor black people of color and those issues. And this is definitely one of them. It's not being messaged as such, but it definitely is. And then I think moving on to, we got to get through this. I think this don't rock the boat mentality is, it's terrible and ridiculous, any election cycle, like for real. But between now and January, another 100,000 people are supposed to die. Millions of people are going to lose their homes. And we can't even get the Democrats together to, in their own states, pass legislation to put housing moratoriums or eviction moratoriums everywhere. We can't get a consistent across-the-board, state-by-state legislation to protect our people and our workers. I mean, the Republicans are great at getting all their states to jump on board to hurt us. We can't even pull that together. So I would like to see if that was true, what I would be seeing is on the state level, they're kind of sneakily passing things, like the Republicans do, to make sure we're protected so they can pounce once they get the opportunity in January. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing them trying to put everybody to sleep so that they can go about doing their business as usual and not feel like failures. And then saying, yeah, we're going to put it off till after Inauguration Day. We don't have that right now. We have we need to win Georgia, and we need to actually survive to get to Inauguration Day if we're going to make it through this.
Yeah. Republicans were still able to draw some pretty tremendous compromises out of this, right, GS? That they got, here's a couple of the wins for them. They got tax breaks for corporate lunches. There's literally, you get a tax break if you have like a business lunch, you can get a tax break for that. And also, they wanted to rein in the Federal Reserve, thanks to Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey. I'm still trying to figure out what his specific or particular skin in the game is, particularly since he's not running for a new term. But there was a moment, we had a long weekend where Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey, who rarely gets highlighted when we have like open public discussions about politics in Pennsylvania as much as he should. But he was holding up negotiations because he felt like the Federal Reserve needed to be reined in. Like he didn't feel like the Federal Reserve needed to be as aggressive or as active in providing this type of relief. So what do you think that's a sign of for 2021? Republicans are gearing up to be just as obstructionist in 2021 with President Biden as they were back in 2008 to 2016 with President Obama, right?
Oh, even more so, even more obstructionist. And they've got a nice little white nationalist militia all over the country to help them do that. I think, again, it's this question of why are you acting like the Republicans are holding all the cards, like they have all the power here, like you can't do nothing if one crazy Republican senator stands up. Like the GOP, mathematically speaking, could be thinking the same thing about the Democrats. It's kind of the same even number. So what's the power dynamic here? And you know what? Again, I think that a large part of it, clearly the media and messaging has absolutely destroyed any ability to provide a strong counter right now. They're not doing their job. But more importantly, I got to go back to us again. Why aren't the labor organizations shutting down everything and saying, we're not going to work? We're using all our member dues to pay our members to stay home. We're not going to put their lives on the line until you get this together. Why aren't our people in the street saying, no, if you're not going to give us money, if you're going to evict us anyway, we're going to be taking over this whole block as it is. And again, people can't do that by themselves, especially traumatized, struggling people, single mamas at home. We cannot do this by ourselves. I know this as an organizer. For decades, we cannot do this by ourselves. It takes leadership. It takes people that can accrue resources. It takes a certain level of privilege that people in struggle really need help with. So I turn again to the leaders that are saying, oh, yeah, we're the ones that, we're collecting money, or we're here on Facebook, we're fighting for you. You are not fighting for me if you are not organizing us in the streets right now. If you think going on the news or you think getting a Twitter like is fighting for me, I got something coming for you, because you're not even talking to me. You're not even in my communities. You don't know what we need, because I don't need you to get a Twitter like for me. I need you to help us organize so we can stop this. And if that kind of pressure was being placed on elected officials and on the media and on society, then we would see, I think, our elected officials moving, saying, no, we have to have more, but we don't have that. So there's really no backbone. We're the backbone, and there's no backbone for them to stand on. So we're getting the crumbs, and it's not enough.
Phone lines are open, too, by the way, while we've got Dr. G.S. Potter. She's on our roundtable session, our top of the week roundtable session before we head into the holidays. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-9228. 866-364-0900. Phone lines are open. You can feel free to join in on the conversation. We have some comments that are in the Facebook Live section. We'll get to those shortly. Probably we're coming up on a break in about a few short seconds. Jess, I want to focus on two. Before we head into break, and we can talk about this right after the break. But city and state aid, there was no real, which I think is cruel. But I also see a plan there. I see a bit of very smart on the part of Republicans, very smart, but it's very malicious chaos theory, or the application of chaos theory in not providing aid for cities and states. I would think that would be a no-brainer. Like, okay, hey, listen, we want to make sure that our cities don't erupt or explode into chaos and get destabilized. We want to make sure that the state stays solvent. That obviously is not a priority for Republicans, but there's a particular mission that they're keeping in mind while they're doing that. So hold on, GS, think about that. Chew on that while we take a quick break. Once again, phone lines are open while we're talking with Dr. G.S. Potter, our regular contributor here on Reality Check WURD, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a quick break here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
This year's been tough, but it's given me a lot of time to learn new skills through the internet.
I've been joining more classes during lockdown.
I'm doing an internship.
I taught myself how to play guitar.
So when people ask,
will I be able to learn online?
I feel like I'm ready.
Internet Essentials from Comcast has connected millions of families from low-income homes to the internet. So no matter what back to school looks like, students can be ready for anything. Learn more at comcast.com/Internet Essentials.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the Mattress Man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
WURD Radio would like to thank everyone who made our 2020 Empowerment Experience a tremendous success. Special thanks to our sponsors, PICO, Keystone First, the Pennsylvania Lottery, Einstein Healthcare Network, TML Communications, and Dedicated Senior Medical Center. Thank you to all of the guests, hosts, participants, staff, and listeners who helped us to honor radio icon Cody Anderson. For more information on the 2020 Empowerment Experience and for on-demand content, visit wordradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, don't forget about the Buy Black WURD Holiday Marketplace. So if you're trying to get your Christmas gifts and your holiday gifts in, you may be getting your gifts after Christmas, which is fine. You know, you can just sort of extend things because you got Kwanzaa coming up. Kwanzaa starts right after Christmas. Then we head into the new year. So you can still buy black at the WURD virtual holiday marketplace. Go to wordradio.com/marketplace and wordworks.com/marketplace. And you can also support your black businesses as well. Make sure that they stay afloat. It is a very rough time for black businesses, for black-owned businesses. But there are black businesses out there very eager to provide you with some amazing, some wonderful products, some wonderful holiday products and gifts, and you can they can support you in your time of need at this moment as you're searching for great holiday gifts, and you can support them as well. Wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace, because at the end of the day, we're all we got, as they say. Dr. G.S. Potter is on with us, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. You know, Republicans are trying to destabilize cities primarily, right, GS? I mean, that's what not giving, not putting city and state aid in the stimulus package is all about. It's trying to destabilize and create a chaotic situation in cities that's just so disruptive that, and these are cities are primarily run by Democrats. And it's also to try to destabilize things to make it very difficult for the incoming administration, so all fingers can point to President Biden as the culprit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two fronts that we're fighting with this one, and that is a key one. One of the, you've talked about it before, the starve the beast strategy. And it's a strategy that's used by a number of national, international actors in the political field, that you're just going to, look what poverty does to people. It can bring chaos to your life. It can also bring chaos to cities and states. And I think one of the scariest places that's going to bring chaos is in COVID distribution, the vaccine distribution. Kind of quick side note, Michael Kors did an amazing show this weekend where he broke down Tuskegee. And I don't know if we're having that online, but in terms of folks that are worried or thinking about the vaccine, that show was just so good. Like, his talk about that was so good. But I think there's going to be disruptions in how we're able to respond to COVID, help the hospitals out that are about to collapse. They're going to blame the lack of public security on the defund the police movement. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be complete chaos. And I think one of the things we also have to be very careful about is our national security. We can't defend ourselves if we don't have things in place and our systems are in chaos. So the hospitals breaking down, the police breaking down, the complete infrastructure at the local level means we can't even respond at the local level if something comes through. And with this national security breach, one of the scariest things is they can get into our water and electric systems and shut them off. They can shut off our hospitals. They can shut off our electricity. They can shut off everything. So what we are actually looking at right now is from the local level to a transnational level, a complete breakdown in security and the systems that we need for the most basic levels of survival, not even just to live our bougie latte drinking lives, but to actually, drink water or have heat in the winter or have hospitals when things attack. So, yeah, at every level, I think you're right, especially for the Republicans. Using the Confederacy model where you completely take out federal support and let states maybe starve on their own like they've been doing with COVID, that's what's going to happen. This medical malfeasance we've seen with COVID, we're going to see that in every system if it doesn't get fuel, which is funding. And then I think, again, second front, on the transnational level, we're looking at a national security risk like we've never seen.
Yeah, no, I think, these are some serious worries on things we need to think about. So, like, once again, Republicans didn't suffer much at the polls beyond taking out Trump. Yeah, okay, you took out Trump, but you didn't take out Republicans politically the way that they needed to be taken out. And so, they're still, like, moving forward into 2021, putting that plan in place, putting that chaos plan in place. Let me go to Gary out of Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check. Gary, what's up?
Hey, good morning, Charles, and also good morning, Dr. Potter. I just wanted to ask the question. It just bothers me that, and this goes for both parties, Democrat and Republican, they can give billions of dollars of aid to corporate America during these times, but the people who pay the taxes, who go out and work hard every day, have to suffer and beg, and people are about to lose their homes, and they don't have medical coverage. What has to change to have the people really get what they deserve? Because right now, I'm not really happy with either party, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Potter.
Yeah, well, as you know, one thing I want to say to contextualize this discussion is as we move through this, we are already in an election cycle for 2022 and 2024. So we have a choice. Do we destroy the Democratic Party and then have nothing to come up against the Republicans and the white nationalists when Trump or Trump's replacement seeks re-election, or when they're trying to get the Senate back? Or do we try to transform it into something else that we can use when that time comes? Because right now we just don't have the infrastructure, in my opinion, to hold, like a black party to the presidency, to the White House, to the full Senate. So I have fought Democrats my whole life. I came up in San Francisco as a homeless organizer of color. And our overseers were the Democratic Party, right? So, yeah, absolutely. Do they have a hand in this? A heavy one, a heavy, heavy, heavy one. But I don't think waiting for either party to help us, I think you're right in that. It's like cancer, It's like it would be like me saying, hey, cancer, I'm really sick of cancer trying to eat all my cells and kill me. Why is cancer killing me all the time? Why can't I get a day off from cancer? What has to happen to make this cancer stop killing me? Well, what has to happen is you have to fight back. And it sucks that forever we have to fight this off, but that's what we're dealt. and we're not fighting back, and we're not fighting, and then it's this, we got to take the right medicine, right? We can't just be like, I'm going to fight back with this green tea. That's not going to work. We got to have the right actual strategies to attack this cancer, and we don't have those in place. So what I see, and I think Charles talks about it a lot, we're lacking a clear agenda. We need that right away. We need a system of organized leadership networks, actually, of lots of different organizations, with lots of different types of expertise to carry that agenda and to organize the people to give the leverage, because we don't have the regular leverage, right? We don't got money. We don't got the media. We don't got the government positions. We have our own ways. So we need that policy organization, and we need that people organization, and we need the strategies. We need strategists in play, not just people on Facebook trying to get likes. We need actual experts, and so we need to carry that forward.
Go ahead, Gary.
Dr. Pop, I just want to ask another question. It's really like, with all the suffering and pain that we're going through, what really puzzles me is why that doesn't really bring us together and come up with a strategy. Because I think some of our so-called leaders, or whatever you want to call them, they're so selfish. It's always just about them. Why can't we come together as a collective? Because we're all suffering. Some of us may be doing a little better than another individual. Okay, I'm pretty good right now, but my friend just lost their home. All of a sudden, 4 months later, it could be me getting ready to lose my home, because we just won't come together as a group and a force that we need to be. How do we get there?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Pop. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for calling. I appreciate you. Go ahead.
Gary's hitting on the heart of everything right now. That question. So a lot of times we talk about how we need representation and we need leadership, and that process becomes very clouded and very difficult because of a couple reasons, right? Like, we've got people that are actively working hard to separate us. We've got people that are trying to confuse our populations and say Kanye and Candace Owens is the leaders of the Black community, not, Charles Ellison and other folks that are actual experts in this community. So there's that. But I think for me, I've been in spaces with intersectional organizing, and intersectional just means, like, you don't just got one type of underprivilege. Like, you're Black. Black is one type of underprivilege in society, but also so is being a woman, also so is being poor, also so is being disabled, also is being queer. And what that means is that you have a lot more attacks on you because of the various different categories of attacks that come on you. So let's say a Black middle-class person might be able to access a space of power. Well, their needs are going to be different than a homeless Black person, right? So when they actually get in the same space and try to organize together, what usually happens is that the people with the more privilege shout down the people with the less privilege. The people with the more money shout down the people with the less money. The people that are not disabled shout out the people that are disabled. And then we get into this infighting thing, and we get into this cliquish thing, and then it becomes about who should be represented. So we're seeing that debate happen now, right? Instead of putting agendas up to Joe Biden and saying, this is what we want passed, we're still fighting for, well, I want the cabinet to be Blacker. I want the cabinet to speak more Spanish, like that kind of thing. And instead of actually fighting for the agenda through clear leadership, we're still fighting over who represents us, because we can't check our own privilege. And there's a lot that goes into that. Like, it's hard to spit it out in like 2 minutes. Like, I taught like year-long classes. that's okay.
In fact, I'm going to take a few more minutes here. I just want to bring in one more listener before we go to break for the 11 o'clock hour. Ms. Madeline out of Overbrook is calling in for a reality check during our roundtable conversation with Dr. J.S. Potter. Ms. Madeline, how are you doing?
I am fine. Thank you for taking my call. This is very interesting. As I heard the young man, my mind went to, I'm calling people that I know in Philadelphia and around the country to call people who they know in Georgia. We need Georgia. But and as I say that, I got this from some people. What difference does it make? They don't do what I need anyway. Wait a minute. Can't anybody do what you need but you? Number one, you got to put your trust in God. You got to listen up, and you got to obey the rule as it relates to dollars in particular for our community. We will get money and go out and buy a new, instead of paying it extra on the rent. Everybody need a roof over their head. A mortgage payment, no matter how much money you make, You need to be able to take $15, $20 every week out of that money and put it up, and that's for your rainy day. Because rainy days are coming. Now, I'm telling you what I know because I bought up real rainy. Feet on the ground, cardboard in the sneakers. Before you get to school, your toes was already on the ground because the cardboard done melted. The water got in it and whatever. And cold. You know, you used to trying to steal your nerves so you won't freeze to death. And keep your hands against your hips. Just all the kind of things that you do. But you got to know to do something. And not only do you got to know. We talking about food. People who live near the institutions, they put their extra food out for us. I'm telling you what the good Lord knows. I'm 87 years old. And to this day, I ain't spending every dollar. Every dollar I got, 20 cents is going into for my grandchildren and into for my rainy day. Because I know I'm going to need it. We must do that. But I don't, like the Jamaicans, they have a thing among them, right? 10 or 20 of them get together and do something where they saving. And ain't nobody going to run off with that money because everybody knows your day is going to come when it's your turn. We got to do something with each other to show respect and love for each other. That's
right, Ms. No, thank you for that message, Ms. Madeline. I appreciate you. I'm sorry, Ms. Madeline. I hate to cut you off. I got to let you go because I want to have Dr. Potter just give her another minute to respond because we're going to have to head into break very shortly. Dr. Potter, before we let you go, when Ms. Madeline speaks some truth there, she's giving us some wisdom this Monday morning, but I want to give you a chance to respond to it.
Yeah, she's definitely speaking some truth. One thing I do got to say, though, is that there is a line. There are lines, and millions of people are under it, where they don't got a penny to scrape together for a shoe. And even if they did, you know what? I've been in homeless communities where people think, you know what, if I got these shoes, that social service person isn't going to see me as homeless and ain't going to target me. That person isn't going to beat me up. Maybe I can avoid that police officer that's always side-eyeing me. And also, we don't tell middle-class people they can't participate in capitalism. So I don't understand why poor people aren't supposed to buy stuff when they get money. But that's not what's really happening on the mass level. What's happening is people don't have enough money for anything, for shoelaces, let alone shoes. And we do have to take care of each other. There are some organizations that are doing that on the street level, peer-run, grassroots, organized, strategic organizations. We need to do better help to find them and give them money. And then the last thing I want to say is that, again, we're already in the election for 22 and 24. If you think we have 9% of Black Americans in our schools are able to pass a civics exam, 9%. People don't wake up knowing how the government works. I got a PhD in this, and I know colleagues that don't know how the government works. We cannot expect our poor people that are under enough trauma already, that don't get enough education, that can barely read, to expect to know how the government works, and then every time an election comes down, shout at them that they need to go to the polls, and we don't even give them bread or a ride or the infrastructure to get them there. Like, what kind of privilege are we exercising on them right now? So if you really are concerned about getting poor folks in a position to change, fund the organizations that are actually helping them and start building the education and infrastructure now to get civics information to them so they can be empowered to help themselves, to help their brothers and sisters. But don't just go be yelling at somebody like the week of Election Day and expecting them to change how they see things. That's not how this works.
Yeah. Dr. G.S. Potter is our regular contributor here on Reality Check, WURD, contributing editor at the B-Note, THEBENote.com, and join us here for our Monday roundtable session. Thank you, Dr. Potter, as always. I look forward to speaking to you on the other side of the holiday season, so stay safe.
Yes, happy holidays to all of you. Please stay safe, Philly, and beyond. Thank you.
All right, happy holidays to you. We'll be in touch. All right, let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side, I think phone lines will remain open. Well, let's just work out the schedule. So, because there might have been like just a quick change in there. So, just phone lines are going to stay open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 as we sort that out. But 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open in the meantime here on Reality Check.
Hi, this is Jeff Brown from Brown's Family ShopRites and Fresh Grocers. Are you thinking about a part-time job to help out with the cost of the holidays? We have plenty of openings. You can apply online at shoprite.com/careers or freshgrocer.com/careers. Come join the Brown family today and help us serve the people of Philadelphia. Have a great holiday.
Step by Step Home Care Professionals is one of Philadelphia's fastest growing Black-owned home care employers, and they are hiring. If you are a caring, nurturing, and compassionate person who enjoys helping people in need, Step by Step Home Care Professionals is looking to hire you. Go to sbshome.care to complete an employment application. That's sbshome.care or call 610-321-3108 for more information and ask for Monet. Step by Step Home Care Professionals is hiring today.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real
with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time.
Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real.
With the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
This program is pre-recorded.
No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. WURDradio.com.
Lifting every voice
till earth and heaven ring.
This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media. Reality Check.
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. So phone lines are open. I understand that maybe one or two people called in and wanted to have an opportunity to talk. So phone lines are open, y'all. 215-634-8065, because I was about to keep Dr. Potter on forward because I had some more questions, just trying to unpack exactly what's over the horizon in 2021. But we're going to go ahead and keep the phone lines open. Folks said they wanted to call in. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let's go to Facebook Live. We have some comments there. Got quite a few comments there. People just reacting to some of the conversation and the news of the day. So we'll go ahead and go into that while the phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Good morning to Renee Mills. Thanks for tuning in, for watching us. And Raphael Suleiman, good morning to you. Raphael Suleiman's got a lot of thoughts this morning, so let's share some of that. It is the poverty here, he's talking about Philadelphia, that is driving the crime rate. The current police commissioner is not qualified for the job. She must be replaced. She hasn't developed any comprehensive plan to combat crime here. So essentially the honeymoon period being over for the current Philadelphia police commissioner, Danielle Outlaw. Homicide still 39% above where they were this same time last year. Raphael also saying Philly is in the grips of generational poverty now because of the low rates of educational attainment among the local population. Here on that. The lack of real black business and enterprise here, and the poor condition of the public school system. Most of the professional jobs in the city are being taken by recent migrants from other places and educated immigrants, not the local black population at all. We need to hire an urban sociologist to assist the city council with the development of a crime-fighting policy and generational uplift through meaningful social policies in the city. The police department needs to work in conjunction with the city government to get this done. Renee Mills, constituents need to get involved, have a Google or Zoom meeting with concerned citizens first, and then the elected officials, as well as the police commissioner. I already reached out to the commissioner, encouraging her to benchmark with Camden, New Jersey, across the bridge. Community engagement, put back educational tools back in school systems such as job training, art, music programs. Companies need to collaborate with public schools again for jobs. Some of my thoughts, but you need to first change the leadership in the public school system. You're going to need to overhaul the leadership, the folks at the top. That's going to happen first. Doesn't seem like there's at least any indication or any signs that will happen, but that needs to happen so we can kind of move forward and do something fresh and new with the Philadelphia public school system. Phyllis Williams, good morning back at you, Phyllis Williams. Appreciate you. And yeah, I guess she did. She was having some sound issues on Facebook, but it seems like she worked it out. Good morning, Shirley J. Carter. Raphael Suleiman still going. As George from Center City says, you have to get the city politicians to actually do some work and develop a meaningful social policy for everyone here. Stop just collecting your paychecks and waiting for a pension. A lot of the people with the city and state are empty suits. So Raphael Suleiman, I've been hearing you too. I've been watching that. The need to create, hire an urban sociologist or create some kind of meaningful think tank or apply sort of a think tank model in terms of how the city is operating, or in terms of how the city is making some of its decisions, tackling some of the harder problems in the city of Philadelphia. The other thing here too about, professional jobs in the city are being taken by recent migrants from other places and educated immigrants, not the local black population at all. And that is an issue that has to be unpacked further. Different groups and different demographics, particularly demographics, non-white demographics in the city of Philadelphia, and particularly black migrant and black American community groups in the city of Philadelphia need to team up. You know where I stand. I think that is the strategy for the 21st century. And, I tend to bristle. I think that is a big opportunity that's been, and I talk to a lot of other people who are feeling this same way too, where, as it relates to we need to engage and need to really seriously think about a black diaspora strategy. That might be one of our big ways out of this. And it's something that's just not being seriously discussed in black public discourse because people are still kind of immersed in a lot of cultural infighting, and that has to stop because we're just missing out. We're totally missing out on what could be a very valuable and very effective strategic move by bringing those communities together, those Caribbean, African, and African American communities all together, teaming up in a really big. I keep having this discussion. I don't know if it's getting through to people. I want to have more of it and see how we can go about that and talk in a more productive manner about that as we head into 2021. Throwing shade at like the different groups throwing shade at one another and not understanding each other, or still holding on to petty grievances because we're not understanding each other's history or cultural or attitudes or mindsets or habits. That's not doing anything for anybody. That's not going to reach any kind of positive outcome or resolution. We really need to think about, one, what exactly is that crystal clear agenda as we head into 2021? I can tell you it's not defund the police. So that's one. And I'm not saying that in terms of just we do need to restructure and overhaul and get rid of policing the way as we know it and come up with something brand new. But I'm just saying in terms of the overall messaging, it's about these pillar quality of life issues that folks just refuse to talk about. And so, but we're going to have to head into 2021 being a lot more intentional about that. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill. Okay, folks are calling in 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for a reality check. Prince.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. What's up?
Great. I just need you to look at this a little differently, because when you say overhaul the educational system or reform or fix the educational system, when you say that, the executive people hear you. The only problem is I got two nieces that are teaching in the school system, and they're hiring Caucasian executive or administrators to do exactly what they think you and the politicians want done. But it's an enormous amount of work on the teachers themselves, along with the other stuff that they're doing. And maybe you can have some teachers anonymously call in just so you can get that input, because it's very important that we be careful, because if we ain't got boots on the ground and we recommend something at your level based on the people that listen to you, you know, Height don't teach in a classroom. Height don't do lesson plans. Height's not on a Zoom call, on a Zoom with these kids when the background noise in the houses is not sufficient for them to learn. He don't see the parents walking back and forth. You know, he a lot of things he does not see, but he may listen to you. And I think that it you know, and I'm only offering a point of suggestion. That's it.
No, good.
You get some teachers on so they can explain to you the other side.
Real quick, Prince, before you go on too, I've reached out to teachers. From the Philadelphia Teachers Union to, I would love to have a conversation with the teachers. I've got like numerous things to do throughout the day other than trying to hound down teachers. I would love for teachers to come on. I tried that a few times. No one's responded. It's like, I can't force people to come on, to call in, to come on this program. Right. But and I'm just kind of giving some background here, because I don't want to get blamed for teachers not coming on or not having the Philadelphia public school teacher perspective. It's not that I don't want it, it's like I do want it. But like folks can't haggle me about it when like I've made the effort, and like I've got other things to do and I got other guests to bring on. There are people that are clamoring to come on this program and offer all kinds of insights and intelligence and try to inform the public, the general Philly public and beyond, about what's going on out there. I've got better things to do other than trying to run down Philadelphia public school teachers. But I mean, the invitation still stands. The Philadelphia Teachers Union, real quick, and I'll let you go on. Philadelphia Teachers completely ignored me to the point where I had to call the national office. And it's funny, and I think it's messed up. Like we've been able to get the president of the National Teachers Union on this program on several different occasions. Randy Weingarten can't get the local teachers to come on, which is messed up. I don't get it. Like Randy, if I call Randy Weingarten, she actually wants me to call me, but on a first name basis. I could probably bring her on, but I just got tired of. I wanted to hear more local perspective. I've been completely ignored. So I was like, okay, well, I guess they're not interested. I just gave up on it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think it's the wrong question. So you say any of my listening audience have people that's in the teaching profession that would like to call me anonymously. Can you have them do that? You have to let your audience help you out there. You can't take an aggressive approach that you. Well, if I worked at a job, if I worked at SEPTA, and I know things were going on wrong, my union represents me, so I can't call against my union, and you can't call the union to go against SEPTA because they're in a collective agreement. So what I'm saying is, I'm not asking you to be on the defensive side. I'm asking you that I could get some teachers. You tell me, hey, Prince, Tuesday at 3 or Tuesday at.
Bring them on. Bring them on. Bring them on. The phone lines are open. The phone lines, I mean, at certain points, the phone lines are open. I'm not going to have a whole program where the phone lines are open for 3 hours. Okay, so that's just not going to happen on Reality Check. All right, but when the phone lines are open, folks should or reach out. I always give my information. My email, cellison@wordradio.com. A lot of other people get in contact with me directly all the time. Like, I don't have to beg them on air, or I don't have to beg them behind the scenes to come on. And that invitation is always open. I would love to hear honestly, genuinely, Prince, I would love to hear from teachers. I would love to hear from teachers and get their perspective. And I would love to be set straight because I know I'm not a public school teacher. So, I would love to, if there are things that I'm missing. And that's why I put that conversation out there.
I work on that because it's important that you at least get that kind of feedback, and they don't get in trouble by giving you that kind of feedback. So I'm going to work on that for you, and then it doesn't have to be a whole show, but at least you get another perspective. And as far as the violence in the city, I think that the fundamental problem is that we're not reaching enough people who didn't get paid to stop the violence. We got people who got paid in the city to stop the violence. Obviously, they've done a bad job. So I think that there should be a phone coalition, you know, where we can come on and you can talk to some of the people, because it's 500 murders is a lot, Charles. It's just ridiculous, and it's a lot. And those are 500 families that can't probably, or at least 490 that won't get closure. And I'll hang up and listen to you.
No, you're right. 500 is a lot, and people in Philadelphia, particularly people in a position to do something, truly don't care about it. And I mean, there needs to be a reexamination of this network or this ecosystem of community organizations, civic organizations, you know, who some of these organizations are designed or supposedly designed to tackle this violence problem. And there are quite a few of them out there. We don't have a full sense or a full grasp as to, like, you know, the specific roles that those organizations play, how much money they're receiving. You know, so, you know, apparently whatever strategy that the city has been employing for a number of years to tackle violence, it's not working. So we need to do something different. Let me go to Jake out of South Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Jake.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. You know, as I listen to you guys, there's so many issues involving the black community that needs to be addressed. And I agree with you that it's difficult for African Americans to come together and come to any type of agreement. But as I look back in the 70s, because I'm a little older, and I look at the mafia, how they was. But you know one thing they did? They formed a council. And whatever that council said, that's what they lived by. If they didn't agree with it, it didn't matter. They was going to live by what the council said. Why we can't do the same thing, have a council where all of us can come and sit down at the table and air our agreements, but whatever the council say, we can live by that, because we're talking and talking and talking, and things are not getting better, they're getting worse. And I appreciate you and all the brothers and sisters throughout the world that's doing the same thing that you're doing right now, trying to reach some type of agreement with people where we can exist and have a better life than we've been having. Unfortunately, not everybody's going to be on board, no matter what you do. Not everybody's going to be on board. So what do? Do we keep saying, well, if you don't want to be on board, then fine, you just get left behind. But we got to move on. We got to find a way to move on, because it's important for the next generation and the generation after that that we find a way or a method or some means, or even if it means that they used to say, the bullet or the ballot, even if we have to go back to that philosophy, well, we might have to do that. But the thing is that we have to learn how to come together and sit down and air our agreements, disagreements, and still function as a whole. That's what I want to say. Oh, yeah, one more thing. I've been hearing a lot about Trump in the White House a few days ago arguing about enforcing martial law. And nobody is saying anything to this knucklehead about that. This mentioning martial law, that's way out of order. And for me, you know, it bothers the hell out of me. It might not bother nobody else. When you talk about martial law, I can't do anything but what you tell me. And if I go out, you're going to shoot me. I'm very concerned about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. People haven't been taking it all that seriously. It is something that is alarming some folks in Washington. People haven't been taking it as seriously because, they just assume that he's just saying crazy things to see how much it resonates. But it's definitely something we're keeping an eye on. Before we go to break, let me bring on George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George?
Charles, how you doing this morning?
Hey, what's happening?
I'm glad you hit on the subject of that violence, but it's all, like I say, it takes a time for it to marinate and come to fruition. But I told you, they're not going to open their mouth. Everybody's going to keep their mouth shut. And whose food you eat is whose song you sing. When it comes to the administration, when it comes to the police department, you cannot criticize the police department. You dare not talk about them. You better kiss up. That's what you better do. You better say, oh, things are great. Give her a chance. Everything I told you that they have to do, not that they want to do, they have to do. They have no choice in the matter. You know, they know she's overwhelmed with the job. They know she don't know what to do. Who you know been in a position this long, Charles, that don't have a plan? No plan whatsoever. You got 500, let's say you got 400 homicides. Let's cut off $1.8, right? Out of 400, you don't have 100 of them solved. I mean, that's kind of strange, isn't it? It's not strange. I mean, I told you what's going to happen like that, and it's happening like that, and the rest of them not going to be solved. You know when these homicides are going to be resolved and when the killing's going to stop is when you get a new commissioner, and that's that. But you can't get, Kenny won't get rid of her unless we reach 580. So it's a good chance we might reach it, you know, and there's a chance if we get 570, she stay. If we get 499, you know, whatever it is, she stays on that. But if we get like 580, she's out of here. Everybody knows they'll speak off the record that she's got to go because she don't know what she's doing. And don't tell me that she ain't in charge because everybody's there. She handpicked, okay? How you going to handpick somebody and you ain't even from here or know anything about it? I mean, it's so ridiculous. One other thing, Charles, before I go, is that, you know, my daughter worked for pediatric at the Atlanta Disease Control Center. And you know what she told me? She said, Dad, always remember this. And she said, in our field, we're not allowed to talk about this. She said, but remember when Joe Biden's son had cancer or something? I said, yeah. She said, you seen all them things came up, treatments and all, to cure certain types of cancers? She said over 30-something cancers that for years was hard to say, hard to cure, and this and that was automatically wiped out, cured because they had the medication for it. She says if the public put pressure, that's the only thing that they respect and understand is pressure. If the public start putting a big outcry about we want to do away with cancer, we want to do away with this and that and the other, then you do away with it. Because like she says, there are cures for everything when they want it to be, and if it's not, they can come up with it. She said, when you ever heard of them come up with a vaccine for anything this quick? Less than 6 months, and usually it take them almost 6 to 7 years to get something approved. So that's to show you that the pharmaceutical money people controls all the things, you know. And if you keep your mouth shut, you don't get fed. Same thing what goes on in this city. You're not going to see one elected official. You might get one or two might speak up, and then they're going to be brought in the room, and they're going to shut up. You're not going to get no elected officials and nobody else to talk about this violence. You don't even hear about these anti-violent groups. They come on and speak soft, but they never tell you the core of the problem. Never. And that's that, you know. But I'm not going to stay up off that horse about she's got to go because I'm tired of seeing kids, women getting killed. I mean, in the midst of something.
What about because she did put a, you know, she had announced or put out a plan back in June for violence reduction. Apparently, we're supposed to assume that plan right now has been activated and is being implemented as we speak. So do we think that we may see some?
Nobody never seen it. It was talked about it, Charles, but it was never seen. Remember, Brian Abernathy was running the police department. That's when all that stupid stuff was going on about, you know, tear gassing, with rubber bullets. I mean, he really that was his toy. That was his toy. Toying with people's lives, that was his thing. He didn't care about black people or nobody. You know, that's just the way it is. But remember, he picked her. He brought her here. So, you know, she's a product of his. So if you expect this to go away, don't look for no miracle, and don't look for nobody to speak up unless it's a photo op. Then you're allowed to talk. It's only a photo op. That's the only time you go see elected officials say anything. And it's a couple of them I'm about ready to put on blast because they're happy that the violence is going on because people are focusing on the violence opposed to focusing on what they should be doing because they're doing nothing. They sitting home just getting big, fat, and greasy. That's all. Just look at the count first, man. How much weight did they put on?
Yeah, thanks for calling in. Yeah, let me, and on Facebook Live, we had Nicole Streets here, her last comment. We are in a state of emergency in so many levels. So, yeah, Nicole, in very simple words, definitely very correct there. Renee Mills saying that the police commissioner's plan is online. So, and that plan is online from June 2020, Crime Prevention and Violence Reduction Action Plan. But I've always said that I think that a big struggle for the police commissioner is communications. It's just, trying to figure out a way. And I know it's difficult for her to operate, in a pandemic environment. I mean, there are a lot of constraints that are there. And so, between the poverty and then the pandemic, the permanent unemployment, loss of business, loss of work that's happened in Philadelphia, that's become a big driver for violence, not just in Philadelphia, but in a lot of places. But she's going to have to, but George makes a point. Like a lot of people, he may know about the violence plan. I might know about the violence plan. So folks, in the media infrastructure in the city might know about the violence plan, but what about like the normal average person? Like how is she communicating that to everyone? I think she's had a real struggle with that since she started earlier this year. But we want the police commissioner. I still want the police commissioner to work. Whomever is in that seat or in that position, they have to work. They need to work. We've got to figure out a way to dramatically reduce killings in the city. Let me go ahead and take a break. And when we come back on the other side, I think we have Nicolette Lewis Saint supposed to be coming up next. We're going to talk more about the pandemic and about vaccine distribution coming up next. Phone lines will stay open in case you have a question about that. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll come back with Healthcare Ready's Nicolette Lewis Saint here on Reality Check. Take care.
Buying something from a dealer just sounds a bit, well, put it like this. My cousin Ray Ray got arrested for buying something from a dealer. So why would you want to buy your car from a dealer? Hi, everybody. This is Nick inviting you to buy your next car from Jerry over at Cardex. See, they're not dealers. They're like a car concierge service. They design a car around you. Almost any make. If it's not on the lot, they'll go out and get it for you. So use my car concierge, where I've already bought 4 cars. Cardex at 116 East Glenside Avenue in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Check them out online at cardexinc.com. Or call Cardex at 215-886-3230.
Want to buy black for the holidays?
Word Radio has got you covered. WURD is proud to present our virtual holiday marketplace online. Support local, small, black-owned businesses through the marketplace and purchase your holiday gifts today. Visit wordradio.com/marketplace or wordworks.com/marketplace. Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to Word Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keep your dial locked
to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Or watch live on Word TV via Facebook and YouTube. Word Radio. Independent Black Media.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio
and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Dr. Nicolette Lewis Saint is Executive Director of Healthcare Ready. Go to healthcareready.org for more information. She joins us occasionally here on Reality Check to talk about what's happening during this pandemic, give you some guidance through it. Dr. Lewis Saint, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing all right. Good morning. How are you?
All right, hanging in there. The busy day and just trying to make the most out of what are expected to be a busy few days before we head into the holidays. The story is about a mutated strain and of the coronavirus in England and also South Africa. How worried should we be about that?
Definitely cause for concern. Celebrating the very quick ability of public health, both in the UK and South Africa, to not just take the action, but have enough tracking going on to be able to detect it quickly. This is what happens with viruses of this type. So it's not uncommon that we see mutants, but we do need to make sure that we are taking additional precaution because as we begin to see these variant strains, it is quite possible that it may be, as we're seeing in the UK, more infectious, more pathogenic, meaning that it may be easier to contract, and the symptoms and the progression of disease may be more severe. So it definitely is cause for concern.
Yeah, yeah. So you feel like the steps so far that the British government has taken, or at least from what you're seeing in England in terms of the response to it, it's been adequate enough, and was that some overreaction, or probably not overreaction, in the way that other European countries have essentially they've cut off their borders to England? Yeah, France is like, I think right now there's a current 48-hour shutdown. I think that we're going through right now, where France completely shut off its borders to any incoming English traffic.
Right. And the UK has closed its own borders down for travel. And I think, it's very difficult to call anything that is in the interest of public health and in the abundance of caution an overreaction. So I do not think it's an overreaction. I think it's sufficient swift action that needs to be taken, especially recognizing the season that we're in, which is a high travel season historically. So I think it's the appropriate action to take. But I also think as we are learning more about the variant and beginning to understand with the vaccines that are coming online, how that variant may hold up against the vaccines, I think this is the right thing to do. Also understanding we're going to have, it's going to be months as we're rolling out the vaccine, so we have to take these kinds of precautions.
Yeah, yeah. This new variant, this new mutation, is it vaccine resistant? What I mean by that, will it be resistant to like the latest vaccines that have already started hitting the market that we're starting to see go into distribution? Because that's a question that I'm hearing from a lot of folks who are worried about this new strain.
That's a very reasonable question. Let's just take a second and think through how the vaccines, the two now approved vaccines work. They are recognizing a spike protein, which is a protein that is on the surface of the virus. So unless the variant has a significantly different spike protein on its surface, it should also render immunity to this variant. That's part of the strategy of the actual vaccine, is making sure that it's recognizing a part of the virus that is going to be present regardless of the variant. So it should recognize it. But again, remember that as we're rolling out the vaccine, we simply don't have enough vaccine right now to vaccinate the entire population. Yeah. So it should recognize it, but the amount of time it's going to take us to vaccinate everyone is going to be a big factor.
Yeah. No, that's a problem. It is going to be a big factor. We're talking with Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint, Executive Director, Healthcare Ready. Go to healthcareready.org for more information there. At Dr. N. Lewis-Saint on social media, on Twitter. More specifically, she's engaged there. You tend to see her thoughts from time to time when she has a moment. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. If you have a question, you got a comment, you have some kind of question about like what's happening in terms of this new strain, what's happening with vaccine distribution is a big conversation point. Obviously, there's still issues, confidence issues in the vaccine itself, and there's a big conversation about that. I did want to ask you about vaccine distribution, Doctor. Your thoughts on how that's being managed thus far, and what the inoculation timeline looks like, the full inoculation of the population. So, like, if you kind of look at everything, and then you look at, we don't have as much vaccine or doses as was broadcasted by the administration. It's much fewer, so we're going to have to take some time here in terms of additional vaccine orders. But it looks like the population won't be really fully inoculated until 2022. That's the way it looks to me.
I think 2022 is reasonable. So I think there are a couple of things. One is we do, and apologies, there's an ambulance passing me.
That's all right.
We do have, so I wanted, you asked about 3 questions, and I want to make sure I take them each responsibly. So on the vaccine that we have available, part of the news last week was that the Pfizer vaccine actually can produce more doses out of a single vial than initially estimated. So we actually have more of that vaccine available than we thought, because we have one extra dose per vial, which is great news. But having the other vaccine now get an EUA approval on Friday, the Moderna vaccine, we do have more vaccine available. Phase 1A is the step that we're in right now, which is primarily focusing on vaccination of healthcare workers, which we've collectively agreed, and the CDC panel and the FDA panel agreed would be the priority population, and then moving into other priority populations means that we're really doing focused vaccinations at this point.
Okay.
Phase 3 is the point where we would get to population-wide vaccination. And so that is likely to happen towards late spring, summer of 2021. So we have vaccine available, but again, trying to focus on vaccinating in a manner that allows for the priority populations to get the vaccine also means that we've got to make sure that the logistics are in place to get the vaccine to those populations, and that the information sharing is in place so that they're comfortable with the vaccine when made available to them and are willing to take it. So I think that is a realistic estimate, that when we're talking about having a significant portion of the general population fully vaccinated, we're talking about early 22. But that's going to be around a bunch of factors, not just the availability of the vaccine, but also people's willingness to take it.
The vaccine distribution and challenges along with that, but I'm wondering if you've given any thought to, or if you've heard any concerns about the efficacy of certain types of vaccine and what low-income and underinsured populations get compared to higher-income, affluent income, adequately insured populations, right? You know, or do you worry about, because like you have like the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, they might be 95% effective, and they don't, they probably require a lot of cold storage, so as they go through the distribution process. But the AstraZeneca vaccine, that's the other one that's also being approved for distribution, for mass distribution in the United States. That's like 70 to 90% effective. So they're all effective, but are you worried about this conversation creeping into the public discourse about lower income Black and brown populations receiving lower grade vaccine compared to white, more affluent populations?
Sure. So I think we should take vaccine distribution and vaccine availability are really two separate issues. When we're thinking about vaccine distribution, we're really thinking about, and just making sure that the terms are, being used equivalently. We're really thinking about what it takes to move vaccines. So as you were saying, cold storage, and what it looks like to give a vaccine to the states and then have the states responsible for distributing that vaccine. That, I think, is really, if you're talking about where the pain points are right now, it's the capability that the states may have to not determine, it's not, their challenge is not determining which populations need to get it. It's having the cold storage and logistics capacity to be able to move it. And so with the bill that was finally passed by Congress last night, it looks like there's about $8 billion, close to $9 billion, that is in there just towards vaccine distribution, which will help the states significantly. That's going to be a huge help during phase 1 and phase 2. That's going to give them the ability to really invest in the cold storage logistics capacity that they need. When you have, so now to the other part of it, which is about availability and which populations get what. So the AstraZeneca GSK data is still coming out, so I don't really feel equipped to speak to the actual numbers, because it's going to be based on what the data indicates, and sometimes efficacy efficacy is also going to be confounded by compliance. And so making sure that we're really looking at the numbers to determine what the true efficacy numbers are is going to be important. I think right now, when we're thinking about phase 1 and phase 2 and the priority populations, all of the estimates that have been used by the federal government to determine what it looks like to get to sufficient coverage of vaccine are focused on the Pfizer and Moderna products. So if you actually look at all of the presentations and all of the data that's been shared by the federal government, they're planning the rollout of the vaccine to be based on Pfizer and Moderna only. So everything else that comes into the system will be helpful, But I don't think we're going to see a tiering of quality of product. The EUA approvals are really focused on making sure that all products that is sufficiently efficacious and high quality is getting to the population. But this is where we have to engage with states. And so it may be that the determinations are based off of patient populations. So if we're thinking about patients, for example, that are in long-term care facilities, that are comorbid, it may be that they need the Moderna product. But it may be that people like you and I, who can also take additional precautions, can have the AstraZeneca product. So it's going to be, based off of a number of different things. But because we don't really have that AstraZeneca data yet, I'm not comfortable speaking to what their efficacy is. But I think we're getting there in the coming weeks.
Got it. I have a question from someone on Facebook Live here, Nicolette, from Phyllis Williams. Her question, if we get the first vaccine and in 21 days we should get a second, suppose we don't get or it's not available, then what? Is the first still effective?
Sure. So what we're seeing from the Pfizer product is that the first dose does give some protection. The second dose is where you get to the 95% efficacy or higher. The dose will be available because the doses are moving in batches. So the clinic, the hospital that is getting your first dose will also get your second dose. So we're not going to run into a situation where, for example, you get the first dose of a vaccine and then the second dose is just not available to you. It will be there. But you have to get back in 21 days, which is, I think, the harder part of this process. And so a part of what I think the studies that are going on now are determining is, what happens if you come in 22 days, and, post first inoculation? What happens if you come 24 days? But we do know that there is some protection offered by the first dose, but it's the hard part of this is making sure that we are timing this so that, especially in those phase 2, phase 3 parts, people are able to come back in day 21 and get their second dose, or in the case of the Moderna virus, day 14.
That's going to be difficult too. Just ensuring people go back for second doses. I mean, logistically, we're bracing for something of a nightmare there. I would think.
It's historically a part of every pandemic preparedness plan has encountered, the challenge of what do you do when you have a multi-dose vaccine. So this is something that the public health community has known would be the hardest part of ending a pandemic for many years. And this is the part where you really just have public health needing resources and needing to get into community, make sure it's as easy as possible to come back for that other dose, and figuring out every creative solution that makes sure that people can get there.
We've been talking with Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint, Executive Director of healthcareready.org. Go to healthcareready.org for more information, also about how to access emergency medical resources and supplies, and go to @Dr. N. Lewis-Saint to learn more about what she's talking about. There was some other questions I have for you, Nicolette, but we'll get you on the other side. We'll probably get you on the other side of the holidays.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of work to do in 2021. Looking forward to a better 2021. Just appreciate your presence here on the program throughout this pandemic. It's been really helpful. It's been really useful. So, and I know that there are people out there that do appreciate it besides myself. But thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you all continue to do. It's been transformative throughout this pandemic. So always happy to help, but very grateful for your continued work and support as well.
Hey, thanks so much, Nicolette. All right, listen, we'll be talking. Happy holidays to you, all right? Stay safe out there. All right. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, let's take a break. Let's just open up the phone lines while we're doing that. We're on the other side of that, 215-634-8065, toll-free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Word Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation
as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with Word. Happy living.
Stay well with Word. Connect with us at wordradio.com. The onWURD Podcast. Check out the onWURD 2020 in Black podcast series. Available now in your favorite podcast app or visit wordradio.com/2020 in Black. You can also ask your favorite device to play onWURD 2020 in Black.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio
and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. Also, don't forget about the Buy Black WURD virtual holiday marketplace. Go to wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace. You too can support Black business. Black business can support you too in your quest for the perfect holiday gift. So go to wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace too. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. I was just saying something. There's a magazine called Undark magazine. It's a scientific magazine that occasionally I'll go to. Go to Undark, UNDARK.org for more information. But they just released, they did this special investigative series with Scientific American about dialysis, about the state of chronic kidney disease and the state of care for chronic kidney disease from diagnosis to dialysis. And there's like a video that accompanies the work, the investigative reporting that they did. And so it's like a series of people that they're obviously talking to, but there's a series of faces that they're going through, and what's a sort of a multimedia mix. Most of the faces are Black. And it's interesting, Black people are over 13% of the official U.S. population, but they constitute nearly 40% of all patients in the United States who receive dialysis for kidney failures. Nearly 40% of dialysis patients are Black. So, and I think that that's just something, we need to, once again, that gets back to that health, wealth, education agenda and looking at public health, broadening that conversation beyond just the pandemic. I think the pandemic has presented us with an opportunity in some respects to start talking much more in a much more careful and much deeper way about the state of our health, paying attention to that a little bit more, and not just looking at health in terms of, okay, the disproportionate amount of us that have been impacted by coronavirus, or folks who are enthusiastic about getting the vaccine and folks who are not. Just getting an overall checkup on the state of our health, particularly our Black community, because we get hit by the disparities, and we get hit by medical violence as well, and healthcare bias. And some of that healthcare bias, it manifests in the overwhelming number of us who receive, who are on dialysis for chronic kidney disease. And there's some controversy that's there. I'm going to read. I just noticed this Undark magazine article. I'll tweet this out when I was on Twitter just during the break. And but I know that there's some problems there. There's some issues there. I remember seeing some reporting a while back where they were saying that the dialysis industry feeds off of Black populations, makes a lot of profit off of Black populations, and sometimes dialysis is not necessary. You have black folks who are dealing with chronic kidney disease could be getting other treatments. So that's one. Same thing with amputations. There is an amputation epidemic among black folks. And ProPublica did some really good reporting back, I think it was back in March of this year. And if you read this investigative reporting from ProPublica, they focus primarily on black communities in places like Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, especially Mississippi. And it's really bad, where black folks are more likely compared to any other racial demographic group of being, rushed into amputation, like immediate amputation for all sorts of maladies and injuries and chronic diseases, even when they don't need it. And just the doctors there are a lot of doctors out there, once again, this is that medical violence. A lot of doctors out there just immediately recommend black patients for amputation because they don't want to deal with long-term care. And so ProPublica put that all out on the table. I think it's a brother that's in Mississippi who went from, he was in a very lucrative private medical practice, and I think he was a Nigerian brother. He was a brother his family's from Nigeria, but he was raised here in the United States. But he was seeing that amputation epidemic amongst black folks in Mississippi, and so he completely repurposed and transformed his practice into just addressing that issue at a loss of income for himself, because he was just infuriated and angered by what he was saying. And so, he goes to different hospitals and he consults and advises them on how to prevent black patients from getting amputated. And so the ProPublica story kind of focused on his efforts. And yeah, it's when you read this piece out of ProPublica, we have to at some point talk about that as we get into the new year, and either get those reporters or get some of the people who were profiled in that story. Because when you read that story, and I remember sharing it with some folks when I got it earlier in the year, and just being absolutely, like, my blood was boiling when you read it, because and it's not just happening in down south, and it's happening everywhere. And so but it's interesting. We need to now have a bigger discussion about, okay, well, what's the state of our health, and what's also, what's the extent of or the magnitude of medical violence against us, because this was happening before pandemic. I'd suspect that there's a lot of it, and we're too afraid to have that conversation about the amount of medical bias and medical violence that has been operating during pandemic, particularly in the administration of care for us, particularly black folks. We're afraid to have that conversation because and I understand it to an extent, because health professionals, frontline responders have been heroes during that's the general illustration of, and to a large degree, for the most part, they are. But there are some shady suspect things that are happening in these medical institutions, and they need to be identified, they need to be called out, they need to be investigated and prosecuted, or basically looking at whatever applicable city, state, federal law there is against that kind of bias, and that law should be enforced. But we're not having that conversation really, and I'm hoping that we have more of it in 2021. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Renee Mills, she said, I just read that 80% of COVID-19 affected people are vitamin D deficient. Up your vitamins. Yes, absolutely. Up your vitamins. Increase your vitamin intake. And keep trying to build that immune system up as much as you can. Should be doing that even when there isn't a pandemic, but that is particularly true when that is especially true during pandemic or during a time like this. Is keeping that immune system as bolstered as possible while you're masking up and maintaining as much social distance. And this is before vaccine inoculation eventually happens, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen to everyone on some level, whether you want to do it or not. They will make sure you get it. So, right now it's just a conversation about distribution and making sure that the vaccine you get is safe, and also that it is efficacious, as the researchers, the medical folks like to say, that it's effective. It's pretty much the other term. But thank you for that, Renee. Thank you for that question earlier on, Phyllis Williams, and it seems like Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint answered it for you, so appreciate that. back to that conversation about the Philadelphia Police Commissioner and the high rate of homicides in the city of Philadelphia, Renee Mills. I don't understand why the former police commissioners don't collaborate with the new appointed ones, at least having a sharing of information sessions. At least I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of it either. I would suspect that they go through some kind of transition, but I know the previous Philadelphia Police Commissioner left somewhat disgraced, so he probably doesn't want to be bothered. During the late 70s or early 80s, I believe William Williams had satellite stations in the neighborhood. So that's something Renee Mills is putting out. Police and community engagement is necessary, but it's very hard, considering the type of conversation that's taking place right now between the police and community. It's frayed. So there's not a whole lot of conversation and not a whole lot of collaboration right now that's taking place between, community doesn't trust police. Police is right now at this stage is upset with the community because they're tired of being called out on their misconduct and the violence of their colleagues who are out on the beat. So they feel that that's unfair on the part of the community. Police unions are running the police departments. I'll repeat that again. Police unions are the ones running the police departments, we're finding out. And so that we've got to put a stop to that, because it's the mayors and it's city leaders, elected city leaders, who are supposed to be running police departments, full stop. That's the understanding that I have, and it's taxpayers who should exercise some type of oversight on that arrangement, and full stop on that. I think that that's fair, particularly since it's taxpayer money paying police salaries. Phyllis Williams saying, I feel Police Commissioner Outlaw is doing the best she can. We need to stop giving her so much negativity and problems. Okay, I appreciate that, Phyllis. Please, like I said, I've always said I want Commissioner Outlaw to succeed. I want her to succeed. So I'm not going to actively ask for her to resign. I think, I think on some levels, I think she was kind of, it's been baptism by fire for Commissioner Outlaw. And it's hard. You're coming from a brand new city. You're not from here. As soon as you start, pandemic happens. So you're going to have to operate in a highly constrained environment. Then the tensions are there. We had especially the unrest that occurred as a result of George Floyd's murder. So it's been particularly rough. It's been very difficult. I do not envy the position that Commissioner Danielle Outlaw is in, and still being able to sort of maintain her composure, her professional composure while she's doing it. I'll give her that. She definitely maintains when she's out in public, she maintains a high degree of professionalism. She's going to have to figure out, once again, I've said this, and I don't say this in a way, I'm not trying to frame this as an attack on her. It's just advice. She's going to have to figure out how to step up that communications component and figure out a way in which she can exude confidence or try to generate confidence from the residential public about what it is she's doing. There's only so many things that you can be transparent about in terms of your plan to fight violent crime, because you don't want the criminals, the bad actors. And there are a lot of perpetrators and bad actors who are out there. I know we talk a lot about criminal justice reform. We need that. But let's just keep it real. There's a lot. Obviously, we're almost reaching 500 homicides in the city of Philadelphia. There's a lot of bad people in the city of Philadelphia. And those bad people need to get caught. They need to get charged, and they should be prosecuted. But you don't want to put all the details of your plan, the weeds of it, out for public consumption, and then all the bad actors and perpetrators figure out ways to outmaneuver you. But she's going to have to figure out a way to. I don't think she's found that stride yet, and I think that is a big part of her problem. I think that there are tools that are there at her disposal to do so, for her to start having more direct conversations with the community and figure out ways where the community engagement is not just her talking to the community or her doing the occasional press conference or occasional appearance here and there, but looking for creative ways to collaborate with the community. So that isn't happening. We could have a better school district if that were the case too. As far as that collaborative engagement model or element, we don't see a lot of that happening. It's just that's one of the other flaws of City Hall. They just sort of make these decisions, in a back room, and then we just are supposed to accept the decisions, and they just kind of like let us sort of figure out the rest on our own. Let me go ahead and take a break, and Okay, sorry. You know what? Let's take. Can we take Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties when we come back? Or no, we have to go to break. I'm sorry, I just saw it just now, but we have to go to break. Let me take a quick break, and we'll see. In the noon hour, we're supposed to come to Nefertiri Sickout, who is the acting Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the City of Philadelphia, talking about the City of Philadelphia's efforts at inclusion and equity, diversity within its ranks. So let's just take a quick break. I'll see what we can do with Sister Murray, see if we can just fit her in real quick at the top of the noon hour. If not, then we'll have Sister Murray call back. All right, let's take a break here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
1 month, 25 bold ideas. A more just, equitable, and prosperous Philadelphia. Join speakers like Reverend Michael Eric Dyson, MSNBC anchor Ali Velshi, LAPD Sergeant-turned-police reformer Cheryl Dorsey, author and poverty fighter Wes Moore, Black Thought of the Roots, and WURD's own Charles Ellison for the Philadelphia Citizens' 3rd Annual Ideas We Should Steal Festival. Presented by Comcast NBC Universal, Tuesdays throughout December. Find out more and reserve your spot at thephiladelphiacitizen.org/Ideas We Should Steal Festival. For WURD members, check your email for discounts and complimentary access details.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
Wishing you and yours the very best this holiday season from the entire WURD family.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Progressive and proud.
Independent Black Media.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app for our live streams, where you can listen to us online and also watch us as well. I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, by the way, at Ellison, if I didn't say that before, before earlier on in this Monday edition, this top of the holiday week edition of Reality Check. I am at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, at Ellison Report on Twitter.com, and as Reality Check listeners do know, I'm not on Facebook. Have not been on Facebook for a long time, and I'm a better person for it. But anyway, go to @EllisonReport, Twitter.com for more there. Joining us now is Nefertiri Sickout. She is Acting Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the City of Philadelphia. If you didn't know they had one, you do now know. And she's also been overseeing and managing the city's workforce diversity profile and annual report. This is an annual exercise. I do believe we had an opportunity to talk with the city last year about this, or at least earlier this year, about their diversity profile from last year. Nefertiri joining us by phone to talk about the 2020 profile, what that looks like, and what are the city's plans in addressing much of this moving forward. Nefertiri, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
All right. No, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate this, and good afternoon to you. So this is an annual exercise. We've talked about it before in this program. I'm real curious about the methodology, how it's conducted. What does this entail, bringing all this data together?
It's a robust data exercise. We work closely with the Office of Human Resources and individual departments in terms of gathering the data. Most of the data, a good portion of the data is taken from the Office of Human Resources, but then we go through an exercise of verifying the data with the department. So it takes a few months to actually pull the data, analyze it, and verify it, but there's always some slight margin of error to control for.
Okay, got it. And so looking at the top line findings in this report, the city's overall workforce seems proportional to the city's black population. In fact, you could make the argument that the black population in the city is actually overrepresented in city government staffing or the employee workforce. It's behind in terms of Latino and Asian representation, and also other demographic groups in the city. Is this correct? Just kind of give us your overall top-line illustration of what the results show.
Right. You're correct. The overall, it is the city's overall workforce, which includes our civil service employees and our exempt employees. Overall, it's proportional when thinking about Black or African Americans and our white residents, but in terms of Hispanic, Latino, and Asian employees, there is some underrepresentation for those employees in the workforce, and it's traditionally been they've traditionally been underrepresented, but we have made actually some progress and some gains since 2016 regarding the representation of Asian and Hispanic and Latino employees in the exempt workforce, which is the workforce that's really under the mayor's authority. I think it's about roughly 1,500 employees that are exempt, and I don't have the exact number of the civil service workforce, but it may be around 25,000. I can take a look at that and let you know.
25,000 for the whole?
Well, let me look. If you want to proceed with questions, I'm going to actually look and see what that number is so I can be precise.
Okay, no, I appreciate that too.
Civil service, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I think this would be a good moment, too, an opportunity to sort of school or educate the listening audience on civil service versus exempt. Just sort of kind of break down for them in elementary terms what that means. I think people often hear that distinction made, civil service employees in a government versus exempt employees. And so what does that mean?
So the civil service employees actually take an examination to be hired with the city, and they come under the civil service regulations and protections. That's the largest part of our workforce. And the exempt workforce actually serve more like at the will and the pleasure of the mayor. It's a much smaller sample of the workforce. I am a exempt employee and not subject to the civil service regulations. I didn't take a civil service exam. So the employees who are civil service tend to stay a very long time with the city. Some of the exempt employees do as well.
Okay, got it. No, that's good because I think people need that.
Yeah.
It does, yeah, to get that kind of basic breakdown of exactly what that means. People often hear it, and I just want to take that moment to explain. Do you compare yourself in terms of how you're doing the diversity, the inclusion benchmarks that you're meeting as a city or that you're setting for yourselves as a city? Do you compare yourself to other cities? Is Philadelphia, by that extent, by that measurement, is it doing well in terms of the overall diversity and inclusion efforts?
We don't exactly compare ourselves to peer cities in terms of how we are trending regarding our numbers. There are certain characteristics that are unique to Philadelphia that makes it difficult to compare across cities. But I think that we do look to other cities in terms of, when we think about some of the barriers that we have here in diversifying our workforce and making it more inclusive. we look to other cities for some guidance on some things that they may be doing that may be helpful here.
Mm-hmm. When you say barriers, right? What do you mean by that? Like, what are some of the barriers that that still have? And there's some other questions I have about, because I did have an opportunity to look at that report. But what are some of the barriers in your mind to more diverse, more inclusive, equitable employment by the city of Philadelphia?
Yeah. I think that, so I would just identify a few barriers. I think one is recruitment and being able to have more focused and intentional diverse recruitment strategies. Mm-hmm. I do want to say, we have made some gains. We have made some progress over the past 4 years in diversifying our workforce. Specifically, there's been a little bit more of a 3.5% gain for increased representation of Asian, Hispanic, and Latino employees in the exempt workforce, and then a gain of over 6% in their representation in the executive exempt workforce, which is those who make over $90,000. But we do recognize that we have a lot more work to do, and a lot more progress needs to be made. In order to make that progress, we have to think about how do we become more intentional in looking at the gaps and looking at the challenges. And I do think that recruitment remains a challenge to have a diverse workforce. You have to have a diverse recruitment strategy. There are some positions where you have maybe a more difficult time in looking for diverse candidates if you use your traditional means of recruitment. If you post a job on one platform, you may not get a diverse pool for that position, versus doing more targeted recruitment around historically Black colleges or universities, or diverse job platforms, or diverse organizations, but really being more thoughtful and thinking through how are you going to open up this position to get a more diverse applicant pool. I think another, so we definitely have more work to do there, and to put in some institutional practices that can support departments and support city leadership in terms of having more intentional, diverse recruitment strategies. I also think that the college degree requirements sometimes can act as a barrier to certain positions. In the city, we do have disparities in terms of who has a college degree, and especially in comparison to other size cities. And so the college degree,
that's in terms of recruitment from people, because preferably you would want to hire people who've grown up in the city, who live in the city, who are from the city.
Right. Yes. And so that is a longer term challenge, I think, which is really looking at why are our communities of color, especially our Black African American communities, falling out of the college, obtaining their college degree, and what are those barriers, and how do we address those? Some of that is being done through the Cato Scholarship with the Community College of Philadelphia.
I was about to ask you about that.
Yeah, to provide support in getting and helping our community, especially our communities of color, obtaining their.
Let me ask you about that too, Naftir, because I think that raises a good point. Because I'm real curious about if there's any sort of collaboration that's going on between like your office or between these efforts, that plan, because this is a plan that the mayor seems to have been a lot more intentional about. I know he went through a bit of a snafu period last year before the pandemic about some comments that he made to the Black Chamber of Commerce regarding diversity recruiting. So I know he put an executive order in place to kind of be a little bit more aggressive about diversity recruited by the city. But I wonder, is there any degree of collaboration with, like, for example, not just the community college, of Philadelphia, but also with the school system, because I'm really concerned. I have been raising this, and I think this leads to that problem that you rightfully raised about like education levels of black residents and making them more like marketable or making them ready for that kind of pipeline, for that hiring pipeline. Like there are very high illiteracy rates in the city. Like the adult illiteracy rates are off the charts in the city of Philadelphia, and it disproportionately impacts black residents in the city. That's the majority of people who are of adults who are functionally illiterate in the city. So, I mean, are there any plans to kind of work a little bit more intentionally with the school district about, hey, okay, well, what are you guys doing in terms of literacy rates? How can we as a city augment that more? How can we create, like at a very early stage, like middle school, high school, start kind of identifying or grooming future candidates for hiring in Philadelphia city government? It seems like you're very intentional about it with the Community College of Philadelphia, but part one question, is there any intentionality with the school district about this, in terms of that training education component? And two, is there any kind of intentionality about partnership with all these universities that are in the city? I mean, Philadelphia is like a world-class academic institution center. So that seems kind of like a natural kind of fit to kind of have them help with that issue. Like, hey, maybe, we need to set up scholarships, not just for Community College of Philadelphia, but scholarships for 4-year degrees at Temple, Penn, Drexel, and elsewhere.
Yes, you raised excellent questions. I would say, first I would say that we need to have a short-term and a longer-term strategy simultaneously. So the shorter-term strategy or the immediate strategy is to continue to make sure that we put an equity lens on our recruitment strategy. So just in terms of the positions that we're posting in the exempt workforce, ongoing, right? And then the educational strategy, more intentional work with the school district and the universities needs to happen as well. I don't have a direct answer for the school district or the university because my office hasn't been directly collaborating with them around this barrier, this gap as it impacts the workforce. But I think that's a conversation that needs to be had and that I will follow up on in terms of how do we make that link and how do we be more intentional and focused around that. Also with the universities, the educational institutions have a role in helping to have more diverse employment outcomes or increasing the equitable outcomes for employment, and I think that's a conversation that should be had as well. So one of the things that I will say is that generally what I find is that work is being done, right? So there may be existing work, probably is existing work happening with the school district or existing work happening with the major education institutions. But sometimes what happens is that the work happens in a confined space, and so you don't know what's going on in these different spaces, and you're not able to leverage the work that's happening and align, around the work and kind of accelerate it and elevate it. And I think that's, been one of the challenges I think that, we faced within this specific office is really starting to align and leverage the work that's happening around us and accelerating it so that, because it's difficult for, this office to be in every space. And so, but I think that as every space becomes more focused on equity and alignment, then we hopefully we'll start to see better outcomes. But that is a substantial amount of work going forward.
Yeah. I also wonder about this, and I worry maybe I'm sure you worry about it as too, Nefertari. State and local governments are expecting a lot of cuts. I mean, cuts are happening now in the next fiscal year. They've had to revise budgets because of the pandemic. the city and state governments, municipal governments like Philadelphia, didn't receive any aid in this latest round of federal pandemic relief. And I'm sure, all of you and your colleagues have been following that, and I know the mayor's been following that closely. So, when I look at this data, the workforce, the diversity workforce data you put together, we do see that that while there is a lot of there's overrepresentation overall of black employees in city government, there are some problems in terms of senior management executive roles. It's overrepresentation of, which is kind of like, it's sad to say this, it's predictable, overrepresentation of white professionals in those roles. And also the basic numbers, at least I saw in this report, show more black people in city government being separated. In my mind, that's being fired. Separation could mean being fired or terminated, and also being either opting out, after working for so many years and retiring, or being forced into retirement. So I wonder, as these cuts start to take place, how much more challenging and difficult is it going to be for the city of Philadelphia to maintain a diversity and an inclusion strategy in terms of the workforce?
Yes, I appreciate your question. In terms of the separation, the data can be, it's so much data that it can be a little bit tricky. Separations include employees who are retiring, employees who may leave voluntarily, also employees who separate involuntarily. So just in terms of that sheer number, when you look at the so Black or African American employees comprise about 48% of the total workforce, and that's including the exempt and civil service workforce. When we look at separations, Black employees comprise about 46% of the total separations, and so it's a little bit proportional when you think about separations. And again, that includes employees who are retiring. And, so it doesn't necessarily mean that these employees are being fired or terminated. But your concern is a fair one and an accurate one in terms of, thinking about the employees who may leave due to budgetary impact, and thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion around that. When we talk about workforce equity or diversity and inclusion, what we really want to see is diversity not only in the lower level or lower paid positions, but we want to see that all the way through up into the leadership positions as well, and we want to see it across the government. And so, you raise some fair points in thinking about what the diversity of our senior leadership looks like as well. I think that we have to be more focused and more intentional in looking at how we are hiring, and also how our budget reductions get made, and we are doing that. When we had when the pandemic came, and what we did is we put together a budget equity committee, a group of people who are employees who are coming and convening and thinking about, okay, well, if we have reductions or when we have to make reductions, how do we do that with an equity lens, and what does that mean? And so there's more people at the table looking at this and thinking about this and contributing feedback into, how do we spend limited resources, and when we have to make reductions, how do we do that with an equity lens? And so this committee has been formed to help make those decisions in a way that is more equitable.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking with Nefertari Sickout, who is the city's acting Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the City of Philadelphia. Go to phila.gov for more information on. Is there a specific place? They can just go online to phila.gov, correct, Nefertari, to find that report. It's the 2020 City of Philadelphia Workforce Diversity Profile and Annual Report. They should be able to find it just by going to phila.gov and searching for it.
I can give you, I think if they go search for the Mayor's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, it will be posted onto the page of this office, the website of this office.
Okay, great. So just, look for the mayor's, go to phila.gov, look for the mayor's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and look for that report, the 2020 report. You can see previous reports as well. I think you've been doing this since like 2016. And so this is the latest exercise in that. Nefertari, appreciate your time. Appreciate the session on this. So please keep us posted, and we'll see how things turn out as we head into 2021.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your great questions and thoughtful interview. I appreciate your attention to this. It's very important work. And so we are elevating that on this side as well, thinking about how do we become more intentional in recruitment and hiring and looking at the barriers and addressing them in a way that changes, policies and processes and procedures to have more equitable workforce outcomes.
All right. No, I appreciate the work, and so just keep us posted. Of course, we're going to do what we can to continue to elevate that conversation and try to find more professional employment opportunities for especially Black residents. Our core audience here on WURD, but it's already a diverse city, so let's just make sure that and representation does matter. So let's make sure that the city does its part in making sure that it's sticking to that. No, thanks for your work, Nefertari. We'll be talking to you soon.
I do want to say,
sure,
we have a new commerce director, the African American male, Michael Rashid, and we have a new managing director, Brian Abernathy. Former managing director Brian Abernathy. Our new managing director is Tumar Alexander, an African American male. Exactly, yeah. And so the mayor is thoughtfully, considering these issues of equity and representation. Even on the cabinet, we have these two African American employees who've been added to the cabinet, and our city solicitor, Marcel Pratt, left and returned to the private practice, and we have a new Hispanic Latina city solicitor, Diana Cortez. And so there is elevated attention to this and more intentionality to this work. So we're on the same page. It's a lot of work, but it's required work. So I just want to share that with you.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. We'll be talking soon. We'll be keeping in touch. Happy holidays to you. Thanks again.
Thanks to you. Thank you.
All right. Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, heading into an EcoWord Cap Corner session, we have Michaela Zonta, who is a senior policy analyst for housing and consumer finance policy at CAP. And we're going to talk about the Community Reinvestment Act. Community Reinvestment Act, that was created back in 1977. I think we had one of our listeners who used to raise that every now and then. We need to talk more about the Community Reinvestment Act. But Michaela, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, her argument is that we need to look at the CRA as a tool for climate resilience and battling environmental racism. So we'll talk more about that on the other side of this, head into a Cap Corner, do a little EcoWord session here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
The
onWURD podcast. Check out the latest edition of the onWURD podcast. Join WURD President and CEO Sarah Lomax-Reese as she hosts a special 4-part series, 2020 in Black. From the pandemic to the global protests against systemic racism to the 2020 election, the onWURD podcast celebrates the full humanity and complexity of Black people in this pivotal year. Listen right now using your favorite podcast service or visit wordradio.com/2020 in Black. You can also ask your favorite device to play onWURD 2020 in Black. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM 900 AM, wordradio.com for our live stream, our very robust live stream. You can listen to us wherever beyond the greater Philly area. You can listen to us throughout the nation, throughout the world at wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app as well, youtube.com/onWURD, facebook.com/4WURD to access WURD TV, to watch us live, which many of you are doing at this very instant. I'm at Ellison Report on twitter.com. Michelle Lazanta is Senior Policy Analyst for Housing and Consumer Finance Policy at the Center for American Progress, who we partner up with to bring you this weekly CAP Corner, and we're going to head into a bit of an eco-word session as well. That's our environmental justice journalism project. But for more information, go to americanprogress.org. On the Center for American Progress, you can check out Michelle's latest report about restructuring the Community Reinvestment Act. That's something we've talked about, we've heard about before, to address environmental racism and to also build up climate resilience, particularly in low-income communities of color and low-income Black and brown communities. So Michelle is joining us by phone to talk a little bit about that, what that means. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me.
All right, excellent. I mispronounced your name. I think it's Michaela. It is Michaela.
Michaela.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry about that. I do apologize for that. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Excellent. Excellent. So you write this brief recently, this study. It's a good long read. I had an opportunity to tackle some of it. A CRA to meet the challenges of climate change. First, let's explain what the Community Reinvestment Act is, because there are a lot of folks who are listening who probably don't understand what that is. I do understand what it is, but I want to give an opportunity for a breakdown for the listeners. It was something that was created back in the mid-'70s, and it was supposed to address issues like redlining. But talk about first, describe the CRA.
Yes. Okay. So the Community Reinvestment Act is a federal law that came out in 1977. And it requires depository institutions to meet the credit needs of local communities in which they are chartered. That means in the communities in which they have an office or ATM machine. So why is this law important? I mean, the law is very important because at that time, as today as well, low-income communities and communities of color don't have really a lot of access to, financial resources to invest in their own community, both in terms of, small business creation or, purchasing homes. So, the CRA was a response to redlining, and basically the redlining was a practice that emerged in the 30s that basically institutionalized, a practice to evaluate the quality of neighborhoods, usually based on their racial makeup. So there were basically 4 grades, going from very good to not good at all. And usually, there were maps that would delineate the risky neighborhoods in terms of mortgage insurance and investment. And these red neighborhoods, surprise, surprise, were usually African-American neighborhoods or, neighborhoods with a large proportion of population of color. So this practice, unfortunately, was institutionalized, and it was used for a long time. So these neighborhoods didn't have access to a lot of the resources that other neighborhoods actually have access to. And with the deleterious consequences, because these investments became chronic. And, if we think about the investment in the built environment, most of the time, these investments resulted in poor quality buildings, or the presence of major highways and a lack of green space that unfortunately have a very important impact, negative impact on public health. If you think about pollution, air pollution, and today we can actually see some of the effects, because if you think about the impact that COVID-19 has had in communities of color is really disproportionate because of their high exposure to, to pollutants. So
let me ask you one thing that's...
we wrote
go ahead.
a report, to address these very important crises in our cities.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is with the Community Reinvestment Act, there's a lot of reliance on financial sector institutions carrying out some of this mandate, right? And that was the mission, the driving mission of the CRA since 1977. But obviously those big financial sector institutions, across the board, they're not doing this. It still seems as if the redlining, if not official, it's still being carried out, and gentrification, mass residential displacement of especially black populations from urban cores is still ongoing. So how do we rely on, or how are we going to force financial and credit institutions to do this work when they continue to be the root of the problem?
Exactly. So we need to push them to make more investment in these communities. And if we think about the CRA is not the only tool to do this, but it's very important because it can place some penalties on banks. Let's say that some banks that do not make these investments in low-income communities will not be allowed to merge with other banks or open new offices and so on. One of the problems, though, is that in many communities of color and low-income communities, we don't have very many depository institution offices. So, oftentimes we look at bank deserts. So, in bank deserts, we have all kinds of other predatory practices that flourish, like, check cashing businesses and pawn shops that charge a very high interest rate. So it's really important to be more aggressive, to push these institutions to really fine-tune their targeting. And the other thing is that, we know that, income and race are very highly interconnected in U.S. society. But, paradoxically, the CRA came out to address redlining. But most of the criteria based on which depository institutions are, periodically examined are basically based on income levels. So race is not really part of these criteria. So, and that's a problem because, we have to be more aggressive exactly in those communities of color that the CRA was originally intended for. So that's why, in our report, we provide like an example of how to target these specific communities, but also by taking into consideration some environmental justice indicators like exposure to poor quality air or close proximity to landfills and waste management facilities, chemical facilities that tend to be usually very close to these communities. So it's time really to, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The CRA is a very, very useful tool that is already in place. The only thing that we need to do is to push financial regulators to adopt these criteria, addition to income levels, so race and environmental justice criteria, to better target these communities and make a change that is very important when it comes to climate resilience.
No, this is fascinating too. It's something I want to explore a little bit more deeply as we and that's obviously we focus on this quite a bit on this program and just throughout the station. So we'll have to have some more conversation about it. A CRA, a Community Reinvestment Act to meet the challenge of climate change. That's the latest report from the Center for American Progress. We brought on one of its authors, Michaela Zonta, who is a senior policy analyst for housing and consumer finance policy at the Center for American Progress. Really appreciate this report, Michaela. So it's given me a lot of food for thought. So thank you so much for the insights. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, too.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Take care. Happy holidays to you as well. Let's take a break, and then when we come back on the other side, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back with open phone lines.
Power tax, yeah. All right. Power tax, yeah. Greetings, my people. This is Stephen Hutchinson, owner of Power Tax Ltd. We do your taxes accurately, expertly, and get your refund immediately. And we answer your questions and explain what's going on in your tax return to increase your financial literacy. We are mobile, so we can come to you. So come to Power Tax. Call now, 610-955-6508. 610-955-6508 and get your questions answered. Come to Power Tax and be powerful.
Enterprise Exterminators, located 4943 Wayne Avenue, specializing in lanternflies, termites, bed bugs, fleas, mice, and roaches. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Call now, 215-849-7070.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, don't forget to buy black during your holiday shopping. You can do that at the WURD Buy Black Virtual Holiday Marketplace, wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace, wordradio.com/marketplace, wordworks.com/marketplace for more there, and learn how to buy black, how to support black business during the holiday season. So we appreciate that, and I'm sure they appreciate that as well. wordradio.com/marketplace. 215-634-8065. Phone lines are open. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, something else we didn't get a chance to just mention that earlier on in the program. If you weren't already aware, last night the statue of former Rebel General Robert E. Lee, Confederate General Robert E. Lee, was removed from the U.S. Capitol. That happened late last night, and so that is no longer. For people who weren't aware, yes, there was a statue of Robert E. Lee in the U.S. Capitol, and so they finally have removed that. So that was also some news that was happening. The governor of Virginia had announced that because the statue is being relocated to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture, but it's been at the U.S. Capitol for about 111 years. The state of Virginia commissioned, or there was a state commission from Virginia that recommended a statue of civil rights activist Barbara Rose Johns as the replacement for that. And so that's a big deal, that happening. But, obviously a lot more needs to change inside the U.S. Capitol other than just removing statues. We know that for sure, but it's good to see. It's good to see. Shouldn't be any statues really anywhere of a treasonous terrorist general, particularly in American government institutions, because that's exactly what Robert E. Lee was. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, there were, I think while we've been on here live broadcasting on Reality Check here on WURD, there was a live press conference, probably his last press conference, that outgoing Attorney General, now fired Attorney General Bill Barr, held today. He's saying today that he sees no reason to name a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden. He said he saw no basis to seize voting machines. That is something that has been floated about inside the Trump White House. Folks like Rudy Giuliani and also lawyer Sidney Powell have been floating that, have been trying to press the president, and Michael Flynn, now pardoned, formerly disgraced, now pardoned Lieutenant General who was the first national security advisor, very short-lived national security advisor to Donald Trump. He's been pushing for the seizure of voting machines, and Attorney General Bill Barr also saying that he agrees with outgoing Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's assessment that Russia was behind, because that hack is ongoing, is behind that massive cyber invasion of federal agencies that's been taking place. It's still ongoing, and we still don't have a whole lot of information on that because the president refused to talk about it. So it is something that the new administration is going to have to deal with and try to fix. or try to battle back, but it's an all-out attack on government government systems, on government digital systems that's been taking place. Well, that has been taking place for quite some time, but it was unearthed last week, and it's very serious because, and Dr. Potter made this point earlier on in the program, yes, that does directly affect you. If you think it directly affects all of us, because those federal agencies also control water systems, sewer systems, all electrical grid infrastructure, everything. That's a really serious cyber attack that it's just the height of criminal negligence that the president doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to mention it because it's his friend Russia. Then we go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties, who's calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray.
Hey, Charles, how are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Happy holidays to you, and God bless you.
Happy holidays. All right. Thank
Charles, you know, we're tired. We're a nation. We're a community. We fight for everything.
Right,
you know,
right. Sister Murray, I'm sorry, we can't hear you for some reason. You sound a little distant. Are you on a speakerphone, or can you speak up?
Okay, hold on a second.
Uh-huh.
Our parents have to really pat themselves on the back because, you know, I sat in with my granddaughter on Zoom. She's 5 years old. And, you know, they go on from 8:30 to 3 o'clock. And that's a full day holding a child's attention span. So, and then they get recess, they get break, they get lunch, they get snacks, and you got to go on and off, on and off. And sometimes you get kicked off. Sometimes you have troubleshooting. I mean, parents is building, and Charles, listen to this. Not just that, just add on the parent that is home that's trying to worry about putting food on the table. The parent that is home that's trying to worry about keeping a roof over the child's head. And why these people sitting up there in Congress and playing around with people's lives. I mean, you going to give them $600? Like, how far? First, you didn't give them money for a long time, and now you're going to give them $600. They're supposed to take that, be quiet, and keep moving. What are we dealing with?
Yeah.
What sense does this make? I mean, and parents, pat yourself on the back if you're doing the right thing. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're trying the best you can. Have faith. Talk to your kids. Talk to each other. Make sure you're always sharing how you're feeling. Because, you know, these unprecedented times, this is a rough time in our life. It's really, really rough. And, Charles, if I may add, the WRD, you know, you guys have been so inspirational to everyone that listens to your show and to everyone that shares about what you're sharing, how you educate us, keep us informed. And, you know, it's just a blessing because I'm telling you, many, many days of darkness, and when you just know that you got that little mustard seed of faith of God, that He's going to bring you through, and then just to hear you guys every day pounding away, finding people, putting research out there, you know, it's a blessing. And God's going to continue to bless WRD. And I want to share one more thing before I go, Charles, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My husband and I, we love our sweatshirts, and we're giving them out for gifts, to T-shirts, and for all those who are not a member, please support WRD. We need this station, not just right now because of the pandemic. We need it to go on through the rest of our life. Our kids can find out what they need to do and how they should prepare themselves for the future because WRD, they putting it all out there for you. Thank you, Charles. You have a blessed day. And thank you for always receiving my call. I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you calling all the time. I really do. Thank you so much, Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties. And I know WURD, you know, I can confidently speak on behalf of WURD. Always appreciate your support and your open advocacy. So, and continue to do what you do. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. This is a key question from Nasir Butler, and so maybe we should try to unpack it as best we can over the next couple of days because I'm going to be heading into break and then going into the source very shortly in the next several minutes. But Nasir Butler asks, Charles, what is it that we, your listeners, can do to help in this struggle besides calling the show? How can we get more involved? So I do think there is value to people calling into the program and offering good ideas. So that's first. I think that activity, that action is always encouraged. And you notice I'm more of a very eager listener, And I'm more engaged in that, especially when people come up with ideas, when they present kind of a new way of thinking about the problem, thinking about the challenge, and they come up with an idea, something that we may not have thought about before. I don't profess to know everything. I can't. It's just humanly impossible. I don't have superpowers, although Black Twitter says that we are gaining superpowers today. It's a running joke on Black Twitter. But anyway, that is a good first step. Advocacy is always a good first step. Advocacy and awareness. The second step is, just thinking about kind of localize what you can do. Like Sister Murray and her husband, her family are very intentional, and they look for those opportunities. Those opportunities are all over the place. Like, for example, WURD, we've got the virtual marketplace supporting Black businesses, buying Black. So definitely listen out for those opportunities. On WURD is extremely intentional about that, about making sure that we present you with opportunities to not just support WURD, although supporting WURD is a big part of that effort, because we're like a leader in that space, and we also want to create more opportunities for leadership and service for the overall community. So looking for those, but strategically, I think we're going to think about, like, I always go back to, and I think that there's an opportunity for Philadelphia to think about that, about unifying, about collectivism. We have to stop thinking, we've been, particularly over the past 50 years or so since the close of the civil rights movement, and we kind of moved into this phase of integration. We've moved away as a community, as a people, from collectivism or acting collectively. And we need to do more of that. Like, I always go back, once again, like, to the Black Resilience Fund out there, and they've raised over $2 million thus far, maybe more. Last I checked, on the Black Resilience Fund out in Portland, that was for their Black population out there. We need to start thinking about stuff like that, because when Nasir asked that question on Facebook Live, somebody else followed up. I think this was Tay Jenks, who was saying, we need to do like the church and pass the bucket around and help each other out this way. Even if everyone put $5 in, we can get out of this. And so that's that very simple concept, that very simple model that was proposed by the Black Resilience Fund out there, just on their own, just taking it upon themselves. A few Black people got together, and now they went over $2 million. They did that this year because of the pandemic, and raising money, no strings attached, and just giving it to Black folks who need to make ends meet, as far as rent, as far as putting food on the table, other things like that. Philly needs to do, we need to start, kind of thinking ambitiously, and understand that those kinds of activities are within the realm of possibility. Stop holding ourselves back. Stop telling ourselves what we can't do, and start focusing on what we can do. What are those things that we can do? And there are a lot of things that are out there that are available, things that are available to us even in hard times, that we could be doing collectively together. We haven't gotten there yet. But we can get there. We can absolutely get there. If people believe that they can. So there's a lot of people who are naysayers and don't believe we can, but we can. So we'll just try to talk more about that over the next couple of days as we head into the holidays and as we head into 2021, and look optimistically ahead to the future. All right, that wraps this Monday edition of Reality Check. The Source is coming up next. Also, the temperature in Philadelphia right now is 41 degrees, I'm told. 41 degrees in Philadelphia, and the time is 12:57. This is being sponsored by the Beach Company, serving the community for 30 years. For more information, check out beachcompanies.com. And we're going to Andrea Lawful Sanders coming up next. Stay sharp, stay smart, stay safe out